Shalom. My name is Adam, and I welcome you to the parable of the vineyard. Every day, Yahweh is waking up a remnant, a group of people who are coming out of deceptions, realizing our walk is to consist of faith and obedience to His righteous commands. Each week, we read through and examine a portion of the Torah, allowing the Spirit of the Most High to guide, teach, and open our eyes and ears to the wondrous matters out of His law. Join us as we seek to be refined by His Word, preparing ourselves for the return of our King of Kings, being faithful and obedient, walking in His way, truth, and life. Shabbat Shalom and welcome back, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Parable of the Vineyard. My name is Adam and I welcome you back. This is week 13 of our Torah portion reading, which is going to cover Exodus 1:1 through 6:1. And I have to tell you, this is going to be probably the longest Torah portion of the year, and it is my favorite Torah portion of the year. And I think it's probably one of the most important Torah portions of this Torah of the cycle. Number one, it really parallels. There's so many things that parallel the time we're living in right now compared with the children of Israel living in Egypt, just crying out to Yah, being overburdened in slavery. There's so many different parallels that I really think is so incredibly important. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a lot of reading, and there's a lot of time that passes over even just a few verses. Like in chapter 1, maybe even 100 years passes from the end of chapter 50 in Genesis to where we're at today. So much time passes, and not a lot of information is given. However, as we know, the Most High tells us that it's the glory of Yah to conceal a matter, and it's the honor of kings to search it out. So I feel like it's such an honor to search this Torah portion out with you. If for those of you that are looking for just a quick, hey, let me just get a quick understanding of this week's Torah portion, this is definitely not it. This is for someone who wants to dive really deep into this and to get all the history behind it, or at least all the history that we can find on it. And I hope it's a blessing. I hope I didn't over dramatize how important this is, but every year I look forward to this week. So here we are. With that being said, let's start with a prayer and get right into it. Father Yahweh Most High, we just come before you and we bless you in Yahushua's name. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you for the gospel. Thank you for salvation. Thank you for forgiveness and your mercy. Thank you for giving us your Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, to empower us to convict us of sin and to walk away from sin and to walk in righteousness. Father, we just ask that your Holy Spirit would be with us today and bless us as we read your word and dig up the things that have been hidden for so long, Father, that you've gifted your end times remnant. In Yahushua's name, amen. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. Shofar. Road shofar. All right, so before we get started, I just want to read a couple verses to kind of set the stage of what we're doing here. Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun." If you didn't catch what's going on here, basically history repeats itself. That's what the scriptures say. 2 Esdras 15:5-11. Just in case you're new, you're like, what's that? This was in part of the 1611 KJV under the Apocrypha section and was included in other Bibles. It was taken out of the Protestant Bibles in the 1800s. But this is what it says. Behold, says Yahweh, I bring evils upon the world, the sword and famine and death and destruction. For iniquity has spread throughout every land, and their harmful deeds have reached their limit. Therefore, says Yahweh, I will be silent no longer concerning their ungodly deeds which they impiously commit, neither will I tolerate their wicked practices. Behold, innocent and righteous blood cries out to me, and we all know this is happening on a daily basis with what's going on in this wicked world right now. and the souls of the righteous cry out continually. I will surely avenge them, says Yahweh, and will receive to myself all the innocent blood from among them. Behold, my people is led like a flock to the slaughter. I will not allow them to live any longer in the land of Egypt. Now, I'll pause there really quickly. I do believe this is talking about spiritual Egypt. I believe that in general, America is spiritual end times Egypt. However, a lot of Yah's people all across the four corners, Australia, South America, wherever, Africa, wherever they're at, is kind of subject to this system that's really been imposed on most of the world. So it says, I will not allow them to live any longer in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them out with a mighty hand and with an uplifted arm, and will smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all its land. So basically what he's saying here, he's prophesying, is what's happened before will happen again. However, I believe on a much larger scale, as in he's going to bring his people not just from Egypt, but he's going to bring them from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, and bring all his people to the promised land. So with that being said, let's get into Exodus 1:1, and we'll do the word audio, and then we'll break down chapter 1. So let's get into it. Oops. Sorry. The Book of Shemot, Exodus, chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Yasharel, which came into Mitzrayim. Every man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehudah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Mitzrayim already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Yasharel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Mitzrayim, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people,
Behold, the people of the children of Yasharel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass, that when there falls out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Yasharel. And the Mitzrayim made the children of Yasharel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service, wherein they made them to serve, was with rigor. And the king of Mitzrayim spoke to the Ivri midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said,
When ye do the office of a midwife to the Ivrith woman, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not as the king of Mitzrayim commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Mitzrayim called for the midwives, and said unto them,
Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive?
And the midwives said unto Pharaoh,
Because the Ivrith women are not as the Mitzrith women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them.
Therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying,
Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
Oof. You know, I gotta tell you, as a lot of you know, I've got a little newborn here, 3 weeks old, and just studying for this Torah portion, I was just really, we can read right past this, and we know how horrible this was. But if you really just stop and think about what that must have felt like, what that would look like, the terror, the shrieks, the cries, them snatching the babies out of their hands and taking them. I mean, I just, the things that these people went through was horrible. I could not imagine my children being ripped out of my arms and thrown into the river. I just can't even. So obviously something happened. So last week we finished at, Joseph was reigning in Egypt. The children of Israel were prosperous. They had wonderful homes and they had lived in the best of the land and they were highly regarded. And then it's like, boom, they're in slavery. There's so much that happens that gets us from where we were to where we are now. We're going to spend a lot of time in this, just the background, the history, and I think if you really stick around for it, I think it's a real blessing to really understand what's going on. So, let's see here. First of all, we're going to be reading quite a bit of scripture from the book of Jasher. And just in case you're not familiar with it, Joshua 10:13 says, and the sun stood still and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? 2 Samuel 1:18 says, also he bade them to teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. So two witnesses about the existence of this book. Some people would say that the version we have today is not legitimate. After a thorough investigation, at least my opinion is, I disagree wholeheartedly. I believe this is the book of Jasher that's mentioned. So with that being said, let's see how quickly this escalated, or how this escalated to where they were in bondage. I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn for us today. So let's start with chapter 58 of Jasher, and we're going to read till verse 20. It says, and it came to pass in the 32nd year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, that is, in the 71st year of the life of Joseph. In that year died Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Magron, his son, reigned in his stead. So basically, just to give you a setting, right now we're reading the in-between time from towards the end of Genesis, before Joseph dies, of course, and all the details leading up to his death, and then of course the slavery. So, and Pharaoh commanded Joseph before his death to be a father to his son Magron, and that Magron should be under the care of Joseph and under his counsel. And all Egypt consented to this thing, that Joseph should be king over them, for all the Egyptians loved Joseph as of heretofore. Only Magron, the son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became king in those days in his father's stead. Magron was 41 years old when he began to reign, and 40 years he reigned in Egypt, and all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do in Egypt to every king that reigned over them. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh reigned in his father's stead, he placed the laws of Egypt and all the affairs of government in the hand of Joseph, as his father had commanded him. And Joseph became king over Egypt, for he superintended over all Egypt, and all Egypt was under his care and under his counsel. For all Egypt inclined to Joseph after the death of Pharaoh, and they loved him exceedingly to reign over them. But there were some people amongst them who did not like him, saying, no stranger shall reign over us. Still, the whole government of Egypt devolved in those days upon Joseph, after the death of Pharaoh, he being the regulator, doing as he liked throughout the land, and without anyone interfering. And all Egypt was under the care of Joseph, and Joseph made war with all his surrounding enemies, and he subdued them. Also all the land and all the Philistines unto the borders of Canaan did Joseph subdue, and they were all under his power, and they gave a yearly tax unto Joseph. And Pharaoh king of Egypt sat upon his throne in his father's stead, but he was under the control and counsel of Joseph, as he was at first under the control of his father. Neither did he reign but in the land of Egypt only, under the counsel of Joseph, but Joseph reigned over the whole country at that time, from Egypt unto the great river Perath. And Joseph was successful in all his ways, and Yahweh was with him. And Yahweh gave Joseph additional wisdom, and honor, and glory, and love toward him in the hearts of the Egyptians and throughout the land. And Joseph reigned over the whole country 40 years. And all the countries of the Philistines, and Canaan, and Zidon, and on the other side of Jordan, brought presents unto Joseph all his days. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph. And they brought unto him a yearly tribute, as it was regulated. For Joseph had fought against all his surrounding enemies, and subdued them. And the whole country was in the hand of Joseph, and Joseph sat securely upon his throne. And also all his brethren, the sons of Jacob, dwelt securely in the land all the days of Joseph. And they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly in the land. And they served Yahweh all their days, as their father Jacob had commanded them. And it came to pass, at the end of many days and years, when the children of Esau were dwelling quietly in their land with Bela their king, that the children of Esau were fruitful and multiplied in the land. And they resolved to go and fight with the sons of Jacob and all Egypt, and to deliver their brother Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and his men, for they were yet in those days slaves to Joseph. And the children of Esau sent unto all the children of the east, and they made peace with them. And all the children of the east came unto them to go with the children of Esau to Egypt to battle. And there came also unto them of the people of Angeas, king of Dinhaba, and they also sent unto the children of Ishmael, and they also came unto them. And all this people assembled and came unto Seir to assist the children of Esau in their battle. And this camp was very large and heavy with people, numerous as the sand of the sea, about 800,000 men, infantry, cavalry, and all these troops went down to Egypt to fight with the sons of Jacob, and they encamped at Ramses. And Joseph went forth with his brethren, with the mighty men of Egypt, about 600 men, and they fought with him in the land of Ramses. So 600 versus 800,000. And the sons of Jacob at that time again fought with the children of Esau in the 50th year of the sons of Jacob going down to Egypt. That is the 30th year of the reign of Bela over the children of Esau and Seir. And Yahweh gave all the mighty men of Esau and the children of the east into the hand of Joseph and his brethren, and the people of the children of Esau and the people of the children of the east were smitten before Joseph. And of the people of Esau and the children of the east that were slain, there fell before the sons of Jacob about 200,000 men, and their king Bela the son of Beor fell with them in the battle. And when the children of Esau saw that their king had fallen in battle and was dead, their hands became weak in combat. So we'll stop there. We'll read one verse from 28. It says, But from that day forward, the children of Esau hated the sons of Jacob, and the hatred and enmity were very strong between them all the days until this day. Now let's go to chapter 59, and we're going to read verse 28. It says, And it came to pass after the death of Joseph, all the Egyptians began in those days to rule over the children of Israel. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who reigned in his father's stead, took all the laws of Egypt and conducted the whole government of Egypt under his counsel, and he reigned securely over his people. So it's like once Joseph died, of course, then Pharaoh regained everything. He's like, this is going to be all for me now. Let's go to... so we don't need to read. Chapter 59 of Jasher 1 through 27 repeats Genesis 50 and Exodus 1. Chapter 60, we're going to skip. This is the history of Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and Angeas, king of Africa. 61, we're going to read verses 1 through 15. And let's see. And it came to pass at that time, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, commanded all his people to make for him a strong palace in Egypt. And he also commanded the sons of Jacob to assist the Egyptians in the building, and the Egyptians made a beautiful and elegant palace for a royal habitation, and he dwelt therein, and he renewed his government, and he reigned securely. And Zebulun the son of Jacob died in that year, that is the 72nd year of the going down of the Israelites to Egypt. And Zebulun died 114 years old, and was put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in the 75th year died his brother Shemot, and he was 125 years old at his death. And he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And Zepho the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, captain of the host of Angeas, king of Dinhaba, was still daily enticing Angeas to prepare for battle to fight with the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas was unwilling to do this thing, for his servants had related to him all the might of the sons of Jacob, what they had done unto them in their battle with the children of Esau. And Zepho was in those days daily enticing Angeas to fight with the sons of Jacob in those days. And after some time, Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho, and consented to him to fight with the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order, a people as numerous as the sand which is upon the seashore. And he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth, 15 years old, Balaam, the son of Beor was his name, and the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. And Angeas said to Balaam, Conjure for us, I pray you, with the witchcraft, that we may know who will prevail in this battle to which we are now proceeding. And Balaam ordered that they should bring him wax, and he made thereof the likeness of chariots and horsemen representing the army of Angeas and the army of Egypt. And he put them in the cunningly prepared waters that he had for that purpose. And he took in his hand the boughs of myrtle trees, and he exercised his cunning, and he joined them over the water. And there appeared unto him in the water the resembling images of the hosts of Angeas, falling before the resembling images of the Egyptians and the sons of Jacob. And Balaam told this thing to Angeas, and Angeas despaired and did not arm himself to go down to Egypt to battle, and he remained in his city. And when Zepho the son of Eliphaz saw that Angeas despaired of going forth to battle with the Egyptians, Zepho fled from him, from Angeas from Africa, and he went and came unto Chittim. And all the people of Chittim received him with great honor, and they hired him to fight their battles all the days. And Zepho became exceedingly rich in those days, and the troops of the king of Africa still spread themselves in those days. And the children of Chittim assembled and went to Mount Kuptizah on account of the troops of Angeas, king of Africa, who were advancing upon them. And it was one day that Zepho lost a young, and some of this is a little off topic, but I wanted to read this just because, well, I think all of y'all's people should hear this. And it was one day that Zepho lost a young heifer, and he went to seek it, and he heard it lowing round about the mountain. And Zepho went, and he saw, and behold, there was a large cave at the bottom of the mountain, and there was a great stone there at the entrance of the cave. And Zepho split the stone, and he came into the cave, and he looked, and behold, a large animal was devouring the ox. From the middle upward it resembled a man, and from the middle downward it resembled an animal. And Zepho rose up against the animal and slew it with his swords. And the inhabitants of Chittim heard this thing, and they rejoiced exceedingly and said, what shall we do unto this man who has slain this animal that devoured our cattle? So obviously what do they call those? What is it? A cryptid or yeah. Cryptid, is that right? We talked about this a few weeks ago when we were in Genesis 36 with those half animal, the hybrids, chimeras, yeah. Okay, let's go to 62 of Jasher 62. We're gonna read 1 through 5. And that year, being the 79th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, died Reuben, the son of Jacob, in the land of Egypt. Reuben was 125 years old when he died, and they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And in the 80th year died his brother Dan. He was 120 years at his death, and he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in that year died Husham, king of Edom, and after him reigned Hadad, the son of Bedad, for 35 years. And in the 81st year died Issachar, the son of Jacob, in Egypt. And Issachar was 122 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 82nd year died Asher, his brother. He was 123 years old at his death, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 83rd year died Gad. He was 125 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. We're going to skip now to verse 23 and read 23 and 24. It says, and it came to pass in that year, that time that Judah, the son of Jacob, died in Egypt in the 86th year of Jacob's going down to Egypt. And Judah was 129 years old at his death. And they embalmed him and put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And in the 89th year died Naphtali. He was 132 years old, and he was put into a coffin and into the hands of and given into the hands of his children. We're going to go down to Jasher 63. We're going to read 1 through 9. It says, and in the 93rd year died Levi, the son of Jacob, in Egypt. And Levi was 137 years old when he died, and they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And it came to pass after the death of Levi, when all, and so now we're seeing all the brothers die, and now we're going to see everything changing. It's like once that generation died, it's like they were like holding out. And then once they all died, it's like the bottom fell out, and you'll see here. And it came to pass after the death of Levi, when all Egypt saw that the sons of Jacob, the brethren of Joseph, were dead, all the Egyptians began to afflict the children of Jacob and to embitter their lives from that day unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. And they took from their hands all the vineyards and fields which Joseph had given unto them, and all the elegant houses in which the people of Israel lived, and all the fat of Egypt the Egyptians took from all the sons of Jacob in those days. And the hand of all Egypt became more grievous in those days against the children of Israel. And the Egyptians injured the Israelites until the children of Israel were wearied of their lives on account of the Egyptians. And it came to pass in those days, in the 102nd year of Israel's going down to Egypt, that Pharaoh king of Egypt died, and Melol his son reigned in his stead. And all the mighty men of Egypt and all that generation which knew Joseph and his brethren died in those days. And another generation rose up in their stead, which had not known the sons of Jacob, and all the good which they had done to them, and all their might in Egypt. Therefore all Egypt began from that day forth to embitter the lives of the sons of Jacob, and to afflict them with all manner of hard labor, because they had not known their ancestors who had delivered them in the days of the famine. And this was also from Yahweh for the children of Israel, to benefit them in their latter days, in order that all the children of Israel might know Yahweh their Elohim. That might sound like a harsh statement, but I'll tell you, we're going to back that up here in just a second of how Yahweh works through hard times. And in order to know the signs and mighty wonders which Yahweh would do in Egypt on account of his people Israel, in order that the children of Israel might fear Yahweh Elohim of their ancestors, and walk in all his ways, they and their seed after them all the days. Melol was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 94 years, and all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do every king who reigned over them in Egypt. So let's pause here. So this statement here, that this slavery, this bondage, it was from Yah for as a benefit to them in their latter days. I could tell you from my own testimony that that's how it worked in my life. It took severe pain and I mean literal pain in my body to get me to consider my ways and to what I was investing all my time doing and the direction of my life and just my behavior in general. And that pain is what got me seeking Yah. I started praying, I started reading the word. And of course, anyway, so we don't know how comfy their lives could have gotten in Egypt to maybe they were complacent. Maybe they were not serving Yah anymore. Anyway, so let's take a look at some verses here. Psalm 119:71, it says, "It is good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes." I have lived this verse myself. I can be a witness that this is the living word of Yahweh, and it comes true. Hebrews 12:5-8 says, "Have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons," or of course daughters as well? It says, "My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of Yahweh, nor be weary when reproved by him. For Yahweh disciplines the one he loves." That's key right here. For Yahweh disciplines the one he loves. And as a father of 6 children, I can tell you that is absolutely the case. That is absolutely the case when we correct our children. Of course, if you're correcting them in the right spirit and for the right reasons, and you're not just being heavy-handed and oppressive. But if they mess up, that correction, and the correction comes in many different forms, of course, but it's to correct their course and get them back on track. Our Heavenly Father does the same for us. And chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. Elohim is treating you as sons, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? Well, a bad father, of course. If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. And so this slavery, this bondage came from Yah for the children of Israel. It may not sound like the best gift, but at that time, that's exactly what they needed. We're going to go to the book of Natsarim, chapter 4, verse 31. It says, Yehusha said, "Fear not the hostility of men, nor the wiles of the world. Rise above your conditions. Be like the water lily, which rises out of the mud, up through the murky waters, into the sunlight above. Strive always to rise above your circumstances, for in striving you gain strength. The man whose path through life has been easy is never as good as one whose path has been difficult. Life has 2 purposes only, to test and to teach, and for that, earth is perfect." And that's some things that we have to just understand. Sometimes on the surface, things may not seem fair. People poke at Yah, and they're like, "How unfair is this God? You've got this child, and they've got this, they're born with cancer, and blah, blah." First of all, number one, a lot of this stuff, I think, comes from the things that we ingest. So I think it's self-inflicted. But nevertheless, it's like all we can see is this earthly realm. I have so much trust in Yah that if someone like that was to suffer, like a child that never had an opportunity to know Messiah and just suffered, and I believe he's the type of El that would show them mercy in the life to come, which way overshadows what they suffered here. So even if they suffered a lot here, the the blessing of eternal life and what's next is a billionfold greater than what's here. So anyways, that's kind of getting on a little tangent there. But let's go to a couple more. Nazarene, we're going to go to 9:33. It says, I call you to serve no mean cause, but to stand beside me and claim your inheritance. Those who dispute the claim are the ones I reject, and you must set your faces against them, even as I do. Come and inherit the incorruptible glory, which is in heaven, even as flesh is on earth. The way is narrow and difficult, for no one who has not been tempted and tried can attain this reward. We're going to go to 9:55 through 57. Is there any man among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone, or a snake if he asks for a fish? If then you, with all your mortal faults and ignorance, know how to give the right things to your children, how much more able is Yahweh to give what is right for his? The things you surely do not need are comfort and content, while assurance and security open the gates for spiritual apathy. Apathy means like, I don't really care. Enter by the narrow, unpretentious. So just pause it real quickly. And so while it may have seemed harsh for Yah to take the comfy, easy lives that the Israelites were living in Egypt and turn them into hard, bitter, that may seem harsh, but this is exactly the spirit of that right here. While assurance and security open the gates to spiritual apathy, enter by the narrow, unpretentious gate. For the road leading to the dark abyss has a wide road and attractive entrance, while the gate leading to immortality is austere, it's hard, and the road fraught with difficulties. Beware of false prophets and those who would mislead you, for many seeking to promote their own ends walk the ways of righteousness, clothed in sheepskins, but are hypocrites, being ravening wolves within. Those who indicate an easy path are false guides. Let me read that again. Those who indicate an easy path are false guides, and those who say another can absolve them from the effects of their misdeeds expound an error. So let's go back to Jasher. So what we saw here in 63 is that Levi was the last man standing, and once he died, then it was like the floodgates of bitterness and affliction came. We're going to go to Jasher 64. We're going to read 7 through 8. At that time when Zepho had returned from the war, and when Zepho had seen how he prevailed over all the people of Africa, and had smitten them in battle at the edge of the sword, then Zepho advised with the children of Chittim to go to Egypt to fight with the sons of Jacob, and with Pharaoh king of Egypt. For Zepho heard that the mighty men of Egypt were dead, and that Joseph and his brethren, the sons of Jacob, were dead, and that all their children, the children of Israel, remained in Egypt. And Zepho considered to go to fight against them and all Egypt, to avenge the cause of his brethren, the children of Esau, whom Joseph with his brethren and all Egypt had smitten in the land of Canaan when they went to bury Jacob in Hebron. We're going to go to now, skip to 40 through 50. Now we're going to get to the actual battle here. So here we go. All the Egyptians, so actually, here you go. So, and all the Egyptians were greatly afraid of their lives on account of the strong battle, and all Egypt fled. So basically, the Egyptians went into battle, and the Egyptians basically got scared in the middle of the battle, and they started running. Every man hiding himself from the arrayed forces, and they hid themselves on the road, and they left the Israelites to fight. So I think it was like 150 Israelites and several thousands of Egyptians. Well, the Egyptians fled, and only the 150 Israelites stayed. And the children of Israel inflicted a terrible blow upon the king's men, and they returned from them after they had driven them to the border of the land of Cush. And all Israel knew the thing which the men of Egypt had done to them, that they had fled from them in battle, and had left them to fight alone. So the children of Israel also acted with cunning, and as the children of Israel returned from the battle, they found some of the Egyptians in the road and smote them there, because they were deserters. And whilst they slew them, they said unto them these words, Wherefore did ye go from us and leave us, being a few people, to fight against these kings who had a great people to smite us, that ye might thereby deliver your own souls? And of some which the Israelites met on the road, the children of Israel spoke to each other, saying, Smite, smite, for he is an Ishmaelite, or an Edomite, or from the children of Chittim. And they stood over him and slew him, and they knew that he was an Egyptian. And the children of Israel did these things cunningly against the Egyptians, because they had deserted them in battle and had fled from them. And the children of Israel slew of the men of Egypt in the road in this manner about 200 men. And all the men of Egypt saw the evil which the children of Israel had done to them. So all Egypt feared greatly the children of Israel, for they had seen their great power, and that not one man of them had fallen. So all the children of Israel returned with joy on the road to Goshen, and the rest of Egypt returned, each man to his place. So this is this is another part of the beginning of the shift. So you had this massive battle. Egypt and the Israelites go together to fight against them, to defend their home. And the Egyptians saw the huge army. They fled, and you had 150 Israelites stand up against these hundreds of thousands in this army here. And so the Egyptians saw this, and then remember, this generation didn't really know the sons of Jacob. So they're like, "Whoa, how could they do this?" And they killed some of us. Let's go to Jasher 65. This is a key chapter. And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king and bowed down to the ground, and they sat before him. So now we're seeing some interweaving of what we've learned into the book of Exodus chapter 1. And the counselors and the elders of Egypt spoke unto the king, saying, Behold, the people of the children of Israel is greater and mightier than we. And you know all the evil which they did to us in the road when we returned from the battle. And you have also seen their strong power, for this power is unto them from their fathers. For but a few men stood up against a people numerous as the sand, and smote them at the edge of the sword, and of themselves not one has fallen, so that if they had been numerous, they would have utterly destroyed them. Now therefore give us counsel what to do with them, until we gradually destroy them from amongst us, lest they become too numerous for us in the land. So they were literally scared of the Israelites. And I know we get that in Exodus chapter 1, but we get a little more detail why they were scared of them. For if the children, because at this point, they're not more numerous than the people of Egypt, but they're stronger and more powerful, and they see it. For if the children of Israel should increase in the land, they will become an obstacle to us. And if any war should happen to take place, they with their great strength will join our enemy against us and fight against us, destroy us from the land, and go away from it. So the king answered the elders of Egypt and said to them, This is the plan advised against Israel, from which we will not depart. Behold, in the land are Pithom and Ramesses, cities unfortified against battle. It behooves you and us to build them and to fortify them. Now therefore, go you also and act cunningly toward them, and proclaim a voice in Egypt and in Goshen at the command of the king, saying, All ye men of Egypt, Goshen, Pathros, and all their inhabitants, the king has commanded us to build Pithom and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle. Who amongst you of all Egypt, of the children of Israel, and of all the inhabitants of the cities, are willing to build with us? Shall each have his wages given to him daily at the king's order. So go you first and do cunningly, and gather yourselves and come to Pithom and Ramesses to build. And whilst you are building, cause a proclamation of this kind to be made throughout Egypt every day at the command of the king. And when some of the children of Israel shall come to build with you, you shall give them their wages daily for a few days. And after they shall have built with you for their daily hire, drag yourselves away from them daily one by one in secret, and then you shall rise up and become their taskmasters and officers, and you shall leave them afterward to build without wages. And should they refuse, then force them with all your might to build. So we'll pause here real quickly. So first of all, and we'll see this more, there'll be more details, but basically Israel, the children of Israel, they get sold. The Egyptians basically sell them fear. Like, hey, we need to fortify these. You saw what just happened in battle, how people are coming to fight us and blah, blah, blah. We need to defend ourselves against, your brother Esau and all those guys and all these other things. And so I really feel like they drove home like what they've done to us in this country, like a spirit of patriotism. It worked on me. After 9/11, I joined a few weeks after 9/11 because, I had been busy watching, of course, all these movies that glorified war and military and honor and combat and so, but my point is that I think what they did, I'm stuttering here. What they did what they did back in Egypt then, and what's going on now are very similar. Selling this, hey, we've got to protect this country. We got to protect, lay your lives on the line, everything for the cause here. And the Israelites bought into it, just like all of us bought into it. But now we're recognizing, hey, you know what? I love living in this country. I'll be honest. I'd prefer to live here than anywhere else. I've traveled abroad quite a bit. I'm thankful to live here, but this is not my home. I'm just a sojourner in this land. Call it America, call it Egypt, call it whatever you want. It's still not our home, and we're still waiting to be gathered unto with Messiah. And so that patriotism, I've kind of lost that quite a bit. Like if I had to do things all over again, anyways, point being is this is what they sold them. They sold them patriotism and defense of the home, which is a good sell. It's a good pitch. Who doesn't want some safety, whatnot. But really, of course, the children of Israel's safety is Yahweh. He's shown that time and time again. But anyway, so here, let's go back to it. So it says, and if you will do this, it will be well with us to strengthen our land against the children of Israel. For on account of the fatigue of the building of the work, the children of Israel will decrease, because you will deprive them from their wives day by day. And all the elders of Egypt heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and in the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all Egypt, and they did according to the word of the king. And all the servants went away from the king, and they caused a proclamation to be made in all Egypt, and to Haphanes, and in Goshen, and in all the cities which surrounded Egypt, saying, You have seen what the children of Esau and Ishmael did to us, who came to war against us, and wished to destroy us. Now therefore the king commanded us to fortify the land, to build the cities Pithom and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle, if they should again come to us. Whosoever of you from all Egypt and from the children of Israel will come to build with us, he shall have his daily wages given by the king, as his command is unto us. And when Egypt and all the children of Israel heard all the servants of Pharaoh had spoken, there came from the Egyptians and the children of Israel to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. But none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. What's going on here? And all the servants of Pharaoh and his princes came at first with deceit to build with all Israel as daily hired laborers, and they gave to Israel their daily hire at the beginning. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Israel, and were employed in that work with Israel for a month. And at the end of a month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Israel daily. And Israel went on with the work at that time, but they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Egypt were yet carrying on with the work with Israel at that time. Therefore the Egyptians gave Israel their hire in those days, in order that they, the Egyptians, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. And at the end of 1 year and 4 months, all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, so that the children of Israel were left alone engaged in the work. And after all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them. And some of them stood over the children of Israel as taskmasters, to receive from them all that they gave them for the pay of their labor. And the Egyptians did this manner to the children of Israel day by day, in order to afflict their work. And all the children of Israel were alone engaged in the labor, and the Egyptians refrained from giving any pay to the children of Israel from that time forward. And when some of the men of Israel refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows, and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Egyptians unto the children of Israel all the days. And this brings up, I'm going to pause here real quickly. This brings up a point I was thinking about a few weeks ago, about how mighty and powerful the children of Israel were when they were not in servitude. So it's like you see here, they were able to destroy hundreds of thousands of people, a couple hundred of them, killed hundreds of thousands of men in battle. So they weren't for a lack of strength and able to stick up for themselves. Why then all of a sudden here now, they're working and then they're being beaten? Why weren't they like, hey, why are you beating me? Don't do that. Remember what we did to all those invading armies that came? It's like when Yah's people are in servitude to other men, to the enemy, it's like their power gets zapped. And it's like once they come, and then as soon as they came out of slavery, they were a force to be reckoned with. Nothing can stand in their way. Nothing, right? So I just wonder if Yah's people today started coming out of the burdens of slavery. Debt is number one, I think, in most of our lives. Debt is a form of slavery today. And there's some parallels. Back then, it was not really a debt slavery. It was a work slavery. Well, it's the same thing today. You got most people slaving jobs that they hate, working, endless hours, away from their families, away from their homes, and working to build up what? Build up Egypt. I mean, it's the same thing. and people are slaves to their car payments and their insurance payments and interest and their mortgages, and it's the same thing all over again. It's just much more craftily done to where it's slavery without fences, without neck collars, without chains on our feet and our hands. It's a spiritual slavery, and I guess it's a physical slavery, of course, with the debt and those kind of things. But we saw earlier that the children of Levi didn't go to the work, and we'll see that they continue to be wise throughout all this ordeal here. And it says, and all the children of Israel were greatly afraid of the Egyptians in this matter. And all the children of Israel returned and worked alone without pay. And the children of Israel built Pithom and Ramesses. And all the children of Israel did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Israel built and fortified all the land of Egypt and its walls. And the children of Israel were engaged in work many years until the time came when Yahweh remembered them and brought them out of Egypt. Listen to this. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Israel from the beginning unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. So the Levites were not part of this slavery. Listen, for all the children of Levi knew that the Egyptians had spoken all these words with deceit to the Israelites. Therefore the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren. And the Egyptians did not direct their attention to make the children of Levi work afterward, since they had not been with their brethren at the beginning. Therefore the Egyptians left them alone. I think we got to take a lesson from these Levites and see the craftiness and deceit of what this world is doing, and the pieces that they're moving, the things they're trying to put in our body and put in our mouth and put in our minds and our eyes and our ears, and we got to be like the Levites. And the hands of the men of Egypt were directed with continued severity against the children of Israel in that work. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel work with rigor. And the Egyptians embittered the lives of the children of Israel with hard work in mortar and bricks, and also in all manner of work in the field. And the children of Israel called Melol, the king of Egypt, Meror, king of Egypt, because in his days the Egyptians had embittered their lives with all manner of work. And all the work wherein the Egyptians made the children of Israel labor, they exacted with rigor, in order to afflict the children of Israel. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and the Egyptians were grieved because of the children of Israel. I think we got one more chapter, 66, for chapter 1, and then we're going to move on here. It says, at that time died Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and Samlah from Masrekah, from the country of the children of the east, reigned in his place. In the 30th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which was the 125th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, Samlah had reigned over Edom 18 years. And when he reigned, he drew forth his hosts to go and fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and the children of Chittim, because they had made war against Angeas, king of Africa, and they destroyed his whole army. But he did not engage with him, for the children of Esau prevented him, saying, he was their brother. So Samlah listened to the voice of the children of Esau and turned back with all his forces to the land of Edom and did not proceed to fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, heard this thing, saying, Samlah, king of Edom, has resolved to fight the children of Chittim, and afterward he will come to fight against Egypt. And when the Egyptians heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Israel, lest the Israelites should do unto them as they did unto them in their war with the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. And so this is like to me is like wars and rumors of wars. So there's rumors of wars. So, hey, we got rumors of wars. That was really bad acting. I'm sorry, I don't even know what that was, but whatever. So the Egyptians said unto the children of Israel, hasten and do your work and finish your task and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau your brethren should come to fight against us, for on your account they will come against us. So now they're like blaming, right? They're like blaming. They're like, hey, this is all on you guys, so this is totally on you. You need to build up these defenses, or else your brother is going to come and get us. And the children of Israel did the work of the men of Egypt day by day, and the Egyptians afflicted the children of Israel in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Egyptians increased labor upon the children of Israel, so did the children of Israel increase and multiply, and all Egypt was filled with the children of Israel. And in the 125th year of Israel's going down into Egypt, all the Egyptians saw that their counsel did not succeed against Israel, but that they increased and grew, and the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Israel. And part of this is what they don't recognize. The Proverbs tells us that the hardworking man is blessed. The hardworking man, his sleep will be blessed. And so I don't know what they're thinking, that like a hardworking man couldn't come home and, have a good night rest and, marriage bed and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what they're thinking, but So all the elders of Egypt and its wise men came before the king and bowed down to him and sat before him. So with this hard labor, again, it's just one of those precepts where it's like what someone had meant for evil, Yah used for good. And all the elders of Egypt and the wise men thereof said unto king, May the king live forever. You did counsel us the counsel against the children of Israel, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of labor, so do they increase and grow in the land. And behold, the whole country is filled with them. Now therefore, our master and king, the eyes of all Egypt are upon you to give them advice with your wisdom, by which they may prevail over Israel to destroy them, or to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, Give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do with them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Job, from Mesopotamia, in the land of Uz, I believe it's the same Job, yes, answered the king, saying, If it please the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, Speak. And Job spoke before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Egypt, saying, Behold, the counsel of the king which he advised formerly respecting the labor of the children of Israel is very good, and you must not remove from them that labor forever. But this is the advice counseled by which you may lessen them, if it seems good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, When Israel becomes fruitful in the land, they will drive us from the land if a war should take place. If it please the king, let a royal decree go forth, and let it be written in the laws of Egypt, which should not be revoked, that every male child born to the Israelites, his blood shall be spilled upon the ground. Now pause, if some of you are like, well, how can this be Job? He was a righteous man. I believe Job had a rough start. I believe he was living in Egypt as a counselor to Pharaoh, and we'll see later on in the story that Job, I think, has a second heart about working for Pharaoh in Egypt, goes back to his homeland, and I believe lives a repentant life. And of course, we know how the rest of the story goes. And by your doing this, when all the male children of Israel shall have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so, and send for all the Hebrew midwives, and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Job. And the king sent for the Hebrew midwives to be called, of which the name of the one was Shephrah, and the name of the other is Puah, which we'll find out in just a second, that is actually Jochebed and Miriam. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said unto them, When ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But if you will not do this thing, then will I burn you up and all your houses with fire. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not hearken to the king of Egypt, nor to his words, when the Hebrew women brought forth to the midwife son or daughter. Then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child and let it live. Thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told to the king, and he sent and called for the midwives, and he said to them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, Let's be honest here. They're not telling the truth. We've talked about this weeks ago. Is it okay? Is it okay to not tell the truth if it saves lives? We'll see how Yah responds to this. It's not from my own mind or my own heart or words. This is how the scriptures put it. Let not the king think that the Hebrew women are as the Egyptian women, for all the children of Israel are hale, which means healthy. And before the midwife comes to them, they are delivered. And as for us, thy handmaidens, for many days no Hebrew woman has brought forth upon us. For all the Hebrew women are their own midwives, because they are hale or healthy or lively. And Pharaoh heard their words and believed them in his matter. And the midwives went away from the king, and Elohim dealt well with them, and the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly. So let's be honest, it was not the truth. The truth was they did midwife, and they did the things that were necessary for the child to live, but they told Pharaoh incorrectly. So this just further proves the point that we were trying to make weeks ago with, is it okay to hide the truth if it's to save life? Save life, nothing else. Not for all the other wicked imaginations that your mind could go to why that would be okay. This seems to be the only reason. Because if it was the other way, Elohim could have said, "Why didn't you tell Pharaoh the truth? You are a liar." He cast out. No, he built them a house and he rewarded them. So I want to take a look at the Targums real quickly. As some of you know, I don't really get into the Targums a whole lot anymore, but there are a few times we are going to read the Targums in this Torah portion because it confirms what we're reading in Jasher and some interesting other things. So it says, And the king of Mitzrayim told the Hebrew midwives the name of the first whom was Shiphrah, and she was Jochebed, and the name of the second Puah, she was Miriam. But the midwives feared before Yahweh and would not do according to what the king of Mitzrayim had said to them, but they saved the children. And the king of Mitzrayim called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, and have saved the children?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "The Hebrew women are not as the Mitzrites, for they are sturdy or courageous and wise-minded." Before the midwife comes to them, they lift up their eyes in prayer, supplicating mercy before the Father, who is in heaven, who hears the voice of their prayer, and at once they are heard and bring forth and are delivered in peace. And Yahweh did good to the midwives, and the people multiplied it and prevailed greatly. And for as much as the midwives feared before Yahweh, they obtained for themselves a good name unto the ages, and the word of Yahweh, Messiah, built up for them a royal house, even the house of the high priesthood. Now that makes a little more sense to me. Because of this act, literally the high priesthood came through this family. So pretty cool stuff. So let's see. So a lesson obviously we learned here, these midwives, Jochebed and Miriam, feared Yahweh, not the decrees of men to do wickedness. Psalm 118, 6 through 10, Yahweh is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do unto me? Yahweh takes my part with them that help me. Therefore shall I see my desire upon them that hate me. It is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in man. It is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in princes. All nations compassed about me, but in the name of Yahweh will I destroy them. Hallelujah. Praise the Most High. I want to, send this to a friend who needs that right now. Okay. All right, so here we are. So now we're going to, so we finished chapter 1. That only took about an hour. Praise the Most High. Let's go to chapter 2. Now in chapter 2, I'm not going to do the word audio because we need to read parts of chapter 2 and to fill it in with Jasher before we move on to the second part of chapter 2. So once again, we have a lot of reading here. A lot of this Torah portion is chapter 1 and chapter 2 to get really to dig into the history and how the Israelites got where they were, because we can learn lessons in the time that we're living in now. What's happened before happens again. There's nothing new under the sun. So let's go. I'm going to read Exodus 2, and then we'll get back to the word audio on the rest of the Torah portion. So here we go. We're going to read Exodus 2, 1 through 10. And there went a man from the house of Levi, and he took to be his woman a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Now we're going to find out what that means, because aren't all children goodly children? Aren't they all just beautiful, even though some look different? They're all beautiful though, right? But we're going to find out what that means. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein, and she laid it in the reeds by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrew Ivrim children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to you a nurse of the Ibrit, the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh. She brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. So we're going to pause there, and quite a bit to talk about here real quickly. First of all, in Exodus 2:2, it said that she hid him 3 months. Now, I just want to share this for my brothers and sisters out there that constantly ask why I use the moon for the months. I'll just give you, this is one of the talking points that I just go over. And it says she hid him 3 months. Well, this word month is not chodesh like it was used hundreds of times through the scriptures. This word is actually the moon. She hid him 3 moons. So she tracked a month by the moon, and that's what's recorded in the Torah. This has got to be prime evidence for anyone that's seeking the calendar. This is not anything other than, this is the word yereach. It is moon. She hid him 3 moons. Also, just to quickly touch on that, in the book of Sirach, chapter 43, 6-8 says, He made the moon also to serve in its season, to mark the times, and to be an everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign for the feast days. So basically saying if you want to track the feast days correctly, well, the sign comes from the moon. A light that wanes when it has reached the full. The month is named for the moon, increasing marvelously in its phases, an instrument of the host on high, shining forth in the firmament of heaven. So praise God. Just wanted to just share that with you, only because I get letters and emails and comments all the time breaking me down. Like, how can you still use the moon? Well, there's a couple nuggets why. All right, let's go to Jasher 67, and we're going to read all of 67. It says, There was a man in the land of Egypt of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, the son of Israel. And this man went and took a wife, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister, and she was 126 years old, and he came unto her. And the woman, and by the way, I've looked at this all up and down, and I can't find anything other than what this plainly says. So this is technically not supposed to be a lawful union. So I don't really have any more comments on that other than I don't know what to say. And the woman conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Egyptians had embittered the lives of the children of Israel, which, by the way, his father's sister, so he married his aunt, which is not okay according to the Torah. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. Never said I have, but it's just definitely an interesting point there. And she conceived, so she bore Miriam, right? And then she conceived again and bare a son, and called his name Aaron. For in the days of her conception, Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Israel. In those days died Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, son of Esau, king of Chittim, and Jenias reigned in his stead. And the time that Zepho reigned over the children of Chittim was 50 years, and he died and was buried in the city of Nabna in the land of Chittim. And Janias, one of the mighty men of the children of Chittim, reigned after him, and he reigned 50 years. And it was after the death of the king of Chittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim, and he went and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents, and made him for a counselor, and aggrandized him, which means to make him great. And Balaam dwelt in Egypt in honor with all the nobles of the king, and the nobles exalted him because they all coveted to learn his wisdom, aka witchcraft. And in the 130th year of Israel's going down to Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hands of the old man, such scales as are used by merchants. And the old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them in one scale. And he took a milk kid and put it into another scale, or the other scale, the other side of it, and the kid preponderated over all. So if you guys know how a scale works, you have one side that's heavier than the other, and it'll go up and down. So literally, one milk kid weighed heavier than all of the nobles of Egypt. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning and called all his servants and related to them the dream, and the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, Interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, This means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Israel, who will destroy all Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. It's true. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectation before this evil arise against Egypt. And the king said unto Balaam, And what shall we do against Israel? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over them. Now therefore, give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them. And Balaam answered the king, saying, Send now and call thy 2 counselors, and we will see what their advice is upon this matter, and afterward thy servant will speak. And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Reuel the Midianite. Reuel, this is Jethro, by the way, Moses' eventual father-in-law. Reuel the Midianite and Job the Uzite. And they came and sat before the king. And the king said to them, Behold, you have both heard the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now therefore give counsel and know, and see what is to be done to the children of Israel, whereby we may prevail over them before their evil shall spring up against us. And Reuel the Midianite answered the king and said, May the king live forever. If it seem good to the king, let him desist from the Hebrews. That means stop. and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom Yahweh chose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, and the kings of the earth. And who is there that stretched his hand against them with impunity, of whom their Elohim was not avenged? So now he's going to review all the different things that happened that we just reviewed in the book of Genesis. So we're not going to do all these things. Talking about, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, then of course Joseph. And here we go. Now he concludes. Now, therefore, if it seems good in their eyes. So basically, it's all the mighty works. Like, hey, don't you remember when Abraham, when Sarah was taken from him, what happened? And same thing with Isaac. And don't you remember what happened with Jacob? And blah, blah, blah. Now, therefore, if it seem good in your eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. But if it be not your will that they shall dwell in Egypt, send them forth from here, that they may go to the land of Canaan, the land where their ancestors sojourned. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, Jethro's Reuel, he was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. We're going to learn about that stick in a bit. And the king said to Job the Uzite, what sayest thou, Job? And what is thy advice respecting the Hebrews? So Job said to the king, behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in your power. Let the king do as it seems good in his eyes. So basically he's like, so Reuel, Jethro, stood up and said what was righteous and what was right, and he basically got kicked out for it. So Job was like, whatever you want to do. Sounds good. Sounds good, boss. And the king said unto Balaam, what did you say, Balaam? Speak thy word that we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, of all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, will they be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if you think to lessen them by the flaming fire, you can't prevail over them, for surely their Elohim delivered Abraham, their father, from Ur of the Chaldeans. And if you think to destroy them with a sword, surely Isaac, their father, was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. And if with hard and rigorous labor you think to lessen them, you will not prevail even in this, for their father Jacob served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which you will prevail over them, and from which you should not depart. If it please the king, let him order all the children of Israel, which shall be born from this day forward, to be thrown into the water, for by this can you wipe away their name, for none of them, nor of their fathers, were tried in this manner. And the king heard the words of Balaam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, every male child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called unto all his servants, saying, go now, and seek throughout the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter shall you let live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing, which Pharaoh had commanded, to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands, listen to this. This sounds crazy. First of all, I want to preface this. Verses like this, what we're about to read, is why some people deny the book of Jasher. But when you do a thorough investigation, you'll find that this is the word of Elohim, and I'll prove it to you in just a minute. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands, they went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field and left their children upon the field and returned home. And Yahweh, that sounds crazy. Now listen, this gets even crazier, or it sounds crazier, but just bear with me here. And Yahweh, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels which are in heaven to wash each child in water. You'll see this in Ezekiel. To anoint and swathe it, and to put it into its hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey. And he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it, and to cleave to it, through his compassion for it. And when Elohim had compassion over them, and had desire to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein till the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herb of the earth, and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. And the babes of the children of Israel were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Elohim's grace to them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth, each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, And they plowed it up as one plow, and was one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel. So the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Israel. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female children they left with its mother. Thus did the Egyptians to do to the Israelites all the days. So sounds crazy, but let's verify that this is truth and not just craziness. So let's go to Exodus 15 of the Aramaic. Exodus 15:2 of the Aramaic. Yeah. Here we go. And it says, Yahweh is mighty and greatly to be feared over all the world. He spake in his word and became to me Elohim of salvation. From their mother's breasts, even the children have given signs with their fingers to their fathers and said, this is our Elohim. Listen, who nourished us with honey from the rock and with oil from the stone of clay at the time when our mothers went forth upon the face of the field to give birth and leave us there. And he sent us a messenger who washed us and enwrapped us. And now will we praise him. He is the Elohim of our fathers. We will exalt him. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32, sucking honey from the rock. It says, he made him ride on the high places of the land, and he ate the produce of the field, and he suckled him with the honey out of the rock. That's literally only here in Jasher that they were sucking honey out of a rock, and oil out of the flinty rock. Let's go to Ezekiel 16. Now you'll see this laid out here. Again, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, Thus says Yahweh Elohim unto Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother a Hittite. And as for thy nativity, and the day that you were born, thy navel was not cut, neither were you washed in water to supple you. You were not salted at all, nor swaddled at all. These are these babies that were born in the field. Listen, none I pitied you to do any of these unto you, to have compassion on you, but you were cast out into the open field. See? To the loathing of thy person in the day that you were born. And when I passed by you, and I saw you polluted in your own blood, I said unto you, when you were in your blood, live. Yes, I said unto you, when you were in your blood, live. I have caused you to multiply as the bud of the field, and as you have increased and waxen great, you are come to excellent ornaments. Your breasts are fashioned, and your hair is grown, whereas you were naked and bare. That's exactly what happened in the book of Jasher, but told in a much more poetic fashion that's a little more veiled. But for the avid researcher and reader, I believe Yah is opening it up to us that this book is filled with truth. I think the book of Jasher is incredibly important, and it grieves me that so many people destroy this book because I don't believe that they've thoroughly investigated it. Let's go to Jasher 68. We're going to continue on the story. Now we're getting closer to the birth of Moses. And real quick, before I read that, I want to share this with you. Exodus 15:20 says, and Miriam the prophetess. So nowhere in the canon do we see where Miriam prophesies, only in the book of Jasher. And it was at that time the spirit of Elohim was upon Miriam, the daughter of Amram, the sister of Aaron, and she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us from my father and mother this time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. And when Amram heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house, after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Jacob to be thrown into the water. So Amram took Jochebed his wife, 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. And at the end of 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son. So he was early born, huh? And the whole house was filled with great light, as of the light of the sun and moon at the time of their shining. So this is not a normal child. We're going to pause there real quickly. This is almost the same thing we see as the birth of Noah in the book of Enoch. And it says, and after some days my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow and as red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool, and his eyes beautiful. And when he opened up his eyes, he lighted up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. And it goes on more and more to explain more, but I want to show you that we've got a similar thing going on here with Moses and Noah here. And when the woman saw that the child was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 months in an inner room. In those days, the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews there. And the Egyptian women went to Goshen, where the children of Israel were, and they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, their babes who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Israel brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders. And when an Egyptian woman came into the house of a Hebrew woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Egyptian women went and told it at the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. And it was at that time, about 3 months from Jochebed's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son before the officers came. And she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child in it. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister Miriam stood afar off to know what would be done to him, and what would become of her words. And Elohim sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Egypt. Which burned up the flesh of man like the sun in his circuit, and it greatly oppressed the Egyptians. And all the Egyptians went down to battle in the river on account of the consuming heat which burned up their flesh. And Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, went also to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat. And her maidens walked at the river's side, and all the women of Egypt as well. And Bathia lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and she sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and she said, This is one of the Hebrew children. And all the women of Egypt walking on the riverside desired to give him suck, but he would not suck, for this thing was from Yahweh in order to restore him to his mother's breast. And Miriam his sister was at that time amongst the Egyptian women at the riverside, and she saw this thing, and she said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and fetch a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, Take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay you your wages, 2 bits of silver daily. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was unto her as a son, and she called his name Moses, for she said, Because I drew him out of water. And Amram his father called his name Chabar, for he said, It was for him that he was associated with his wife, for whom he had turned away. And this is all the different names. Okay. And Moses was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son, and Moses grew up amongst the king's children. Let's go to 69. Here we go. 69 verse 4. And when Pharaoh, king of Egypt, saw that the counsel which Balaam had advised respecting the children of Israel did not succeed, but that they still were fruitful, multiplied, and increased throughout the land of Egypt, which, by the way, if we have to be honest, if the children of Israel left with 620,000 men and women and children, they had to have multiplied exceedingly during those times. So if they were killing them, throwing them in the water, they had to multiply at some point. So honestly, that story about the field doesn't sound all that crazy anymore, especially when the book of Ezekiel laid it out for us. Then Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Egypt to the children of Israel, saying, No man shall diminish anything from his labor. And the man who shall be found deficient in his labor, which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in bricks, then his youngest son shall be put in their place. And the labor of Egypt strengthened upon the children of Israel in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptians took his youngest boy by force from his mother, and put him into the building in the place of the brick which his father had left wanting. And the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel day by day, all the days for a long period. But the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites their brethren from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first towards the Israelite. We're going to go to chapter 70, and here we go. Here's Moses. Okay. And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moses, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet when Alparanith, the queen, was sitting at his right, and Bathia, his daughter, at his left, and the lad Moses was lying upon her bosom. And Balaam, the son of Beor, with his 2 sons, Jannes and Jambres, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at the table at the king's presence. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took the crown from the king's head and placed it on his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king and the princes were terrified, and one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment. And the king said unto the princes, who were before him at the table, What speak you, and what say you, O ye princes, in this matter? And what is to be the judgment against the boy on account of this act? And Balaam the son of Beor the magician answered before the king and the princes, and he said, Remember now, O my master and king, the dream which you did dream many days since, and that which your servant interpreted to you. Now therefore, this is a child from the Hebrew children, in whom is the spirit of Elohim. And let not my master the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge. For he is a Hebrew boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him, although he is yet a child. And with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Egypt. For this is the manner of all the Hebrews, to deceive kings and their nobles, to do all these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble. Surely you know that Abraham their father acted this way, who deceived the army of Nimrod king of Babel, and Abimelech king of Gerar, and he possessed himself and that he possessed himself of the land of the children of Heth and all the kingdoms of Canaan. And that he descended into Egypt and said of Sarah of his wife, She is my sister, in order to mislead Egypt and her king. His son Isaac also did so when he went to Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed over the army of Abimelech, king of the Philistines. He also thought of making the kingdom of the Philistines stumble, and saying that Rebekah his wife was his sister. Jacob also dealt treacherously with his brother, and took from his hand his birthright and his blessing. And this is what the enemy does. The enemy takes true stories and twists the details in order to make them look evil. Making good look evil and evil look good. He went then to Padan Aram. This is slander. He went then to Padan Aram, to the house of Laban, his mother's brother, and cunningly obtained from him his daughter, his cattle, and all belonging to him, and fled away and returned to the land of Canaan his father. His sons sold their brother Joseph, who went down into Egypt and became a slave, and was placed in the prison house for 12 years, until the former Pharaoh dreamed dreams and withdrew him from the prison house, and magnified him above all the princes in Egypt on account of his interpreting his dreams to him. And when Elohim caused a famine throughout the land, he sent forth and brought his father and all his brothers, and the whole of his father's household, and supported them without price or reward, and bought the Egyptians for slaves. Now therefore, my master and king, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Egypt, to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from your hand, and the hope of Egypt perish after he shall have reigned. And Balaam said to the king, Let us moreover call for all the judges of Egypt, and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as you did say, and then we will slay him. And Pharaoh sent and called for all the wise men of Egypt, and they came before the king. And an angel of Yahweh came amongst them, and he was like one of the wise men of Egypt. And the king said to the wise men, Surely you have heard what this Hebrew boy who is in the house has done, and thus has Balaam judged in the matter. Now judge you also, and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said as follows, before all the wise men of Egypt, and before the king and the princes, If it please the king, let the king send for the men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the thing seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes. So the king did according to the word of the angel of Yahweh. And the king ordered the onyx stone and the coal be brought and placed before Moshe. And they placed the boy before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone, but the angel of Yahweh took his hand and placed it upon the coal, and the coal became extinguished in his hand, and he lifted it up and put it into his mouth, and burned part of his lips and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in mouth and tongue. And I do speculate that, and others do, that he did kind of permanently burn his lips and tongue, that he couldn't really speak that well afterwards. And this is what leads up to why he has that speech impediment in Exodus 3, I think, or 4. And when the king and princes saw this, they knew that Moses had not acted with wisdom in taking off the crown from the king's head. So the king and princes refrained from slaying the child. So Moses remained in Pharaoh's house, growing up, and Yahweh was with him. And whilst the boy was in the king's house, he was robed in purple, and he grew amongst the children of the king. And when Moses grew up in the king's house, Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son, and all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Egypt were afraid of him. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren, the children of Israel, were. And Moses saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. And Moses asked them, saying, Wherefore is this labor meted out to you day by day? And they told him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they told him all the counsels which Balaam the son of Beor had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against him in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from off his head. And when Moses heard these things, his anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him, and he was an ambush for him day by day. And Balaam was afraid of Moses, and he and his 2 sons rose up and went forth from Egypt, and they fled and delivered their souls and betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kikianus, king of Cush. And Moses was in the king's house, going out and coming in, and Yahweh gave him favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants, and in the eyes of all the people of Egypt, and they loved Moses exceedingly. And the day arrived when Moses went to Goshen to see his brethren, that he saw the children of Israel in their burdens and hard labor, and Moses was grieved on their account. And Moses returned to Egypt and came to the house of Pharaoh, and came before the king, and Moses bowed down before the king. Now listen to this. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, I pray you, my master, I have come to seek a small request from you. Turn not away my face empty. And Pharaoh said to him, Speak. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, Let there be given unto your servants, the children of Israel, who were in Goshen, 1 day to rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moses and said, Behold, I have lifted up your face in this thing to grant your request. And Pharaoh ordered a proclamation to be issued throughout Egypt and Goshen, saying, To you, all the children of Israel, thus says the king, For 6 days shall you do your work and labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest, and shall not perform any work. Thus shall you do all the days, as the king and Moshe the son of Bathia have commanded. So, pretty cool. And Moses rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted to him, and all the children of Israel did as Moses ordered them. For this thing was from Yahweh to the children of Israel. For Yahweh had begun to remember the children of Israel, to save them for the sake of their fathers. And Yahweh was with Moses, and his fame went throughout Egypt. And Moses became great in the eyes of all the Egyptians, and in the eyes of all the children of Israel, seeking good for his people Israel, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king. Pretty cool. And also, yes, it was Exodus 4. So Moses said unto him, O Yahweh my Elohim, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. It's very possible that is where this incident with the coal is where that stemmed from. So it's interesting, the story of Moses. We see here that Moses was so great in the eyes of Egypt and the people, and then, of course, his people later rejected him and hated him like they did Messiah. It's also interesting to note that the Sabbath was restored, and then persecution, and then the Exodus. So kind of interesting that Yah is now restoring the Shabbat back to his people. Also, this Shabbat, I believe, is what pertains to Exodus 5:17. Oops. When Pharaoh was like, you are idle. This is why you say, let us go and sacrifice to Yahweh. Idle means they're not doing anything. I think that's when maybe at some point, well, it says at some point he took away the Sabbath, but I think that's what it was alluding to in chapter 5 of Exodus, which we'll read in a bit. So now let's go to Exodus 2:11 through 15. So it says, And it came to pass in those days when Moshe was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens and spied a Mitzri smiting an Ivri, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Mitzrite, the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore smite you your fellow? And he said, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? And intend you to kill me as you killed the Mitzrite? And Moshe feared and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moshe, but Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. This is why I'm stopping here, because in some of these cases, you have 50 years pass by in a couple verses, and you're like, wait a minute, I want to know more. So let's know more. Let's go to chapter 71 of Jasher, which says, And when Moses was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and he went to them to Goshen. And when Moses had come near Goshen, he came to the place where the children of Israel were engaged in work. And he observed their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting one of his Hebrew brethren. And when the man who was beaten saw Moses, he ran to him for help. For the man Moses was greatly respected in the house of Pharaoh. And he said to him, My master, attend to me. This Egyptian came to my house in the night, bound me, and came to my wife in my presence. And now he seeks to take my life away. Now, this seems a lot more of a cause for what Moses did than but I mean, their people were getting beat everywhere. What was different about this scenario why Moses stepped in and killed him? And when Moses heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled against the Egyptian, and he turned this way and the other, and when he saw there was no man, there he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand and delivered the Hebrew from the hand of him that smote him. And the Hebrew went to his house, and Moses returned to his home and went forth and came back to the king's house. And when the man had returned home, he thought of repudiating his wife, for it was not right in the house of Jacob for any man to come to his wife after she had been defiled. And the woman went and told her brothers, and the woman's brothers sought to slay him, and he fled to his house and escaped. And on the second day Moses went forth to his brethren, and saw, and behold, 2 men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, Why do you smite your neighbor? And he answered him and said, Who has set you for a prince and judge over us? Do you think to slay me as you did to slay the Egyptian? And Moses was afraid, and he said, Surely the thing is known. And Pharaoh heard this affair, and he ordered Moses to be slain. So Elohim sent his angel, and he appeared unto Pharaoh in the likeness of a captain of the guard. And the angel of Yahweh took the sword from the hand of the captain of the guard, and took his head off with it. For the likeness of the captain of the guard was turned into the likeness of Moses. And the angel of Yahweh took hold of the right hand of Moses, and brought him forth from Egypt, and placed him from without the borders of Egypt, a distance of 40 days' journey. And Aaron his brother alone remained in the land of Egypt, and he prophesied to the children of Israel, saying, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors, Throw away each man the abominations of his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. And the children of Israel rebelled and would not hearken to Aaron at that time. And Yahweh thought to destroy them, were it not that Yahweh remembered the covenant which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob. In those days the hand of Pharaoh continued to be severe against the children of Israel, and he crushed and oppressed them until the time when Elohim sent forth his word, Messiah, and took notice of them. Let's go to 72. We're going to skip, actually. We're going to go to 73. We're going to read verse 1 and then 28 through 34. In the 55th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that is in the 175th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt, reigned Moses in Cush. By the way, we skipped chapter 2, which was the wars of Cush. So after Moses left Egypt, he actually didn't go to Midian first. He went to Cush first, which is Ethiopia, ended up helping them in war, and they ended up making him king. And then verse 28, we'll go down. So we're going to skip all this. It's a really cool read, but just for time's sake, we're going to skip it. We're going to go down to verse 28. And Balaam the magician, when he saw that the city was taken, he opened the gate, and he and his 2 sons and 8 brothers fled and returned to Egypt to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They are the sorcerers and magicians who are mentioned in the book of the law, standing against Moses when Yahweh brought the plagues upon Egypt. So Moses took the city by his wisdom, and the children of Cush placed him on the throne instead of Kikianus, king of Cush. And they placed the royal crown upon his head, and they gave him for a wife Adoniah, the Cushite queen, wife of Kikianus. And Moses feared Yahweh, the Yahweh Elohim of his fathers, so that he came not to her, nor did he turn his eyes to her. For Moses remembered how Abraham had made his servant Eliezer swear, saying unto him, You shall not take a woman from the daughters of Canaan for my son Isaac. Also what Isaac did when Jacob had fled from his brother, when he commanded him, saying, You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, nor make alliance with any of the children of Ham. So Moses did marry a Cushite woman, Ethiopian woman, which we see it seems to come out of nowhere in Numbers 12. It says, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman who he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. And so it's like, where does this come from? Commentators over the years have no idea, but you read the book of Jasher and you're like, okay, it's right there. Also go back here to verses 28 through 29, talking about Balaam and his 2 sons. It says that these are the sorcerers and magicians who are mentioned in the book of the law, standing against Moses. And we see this repeated by Paul. Paul knew Jasher pretty well. 2 Timothy 3:8 says, Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. which a little bit later, the only places I know where the names Jannes and Jambres reside is in the book of Jasher, maybe in maybe in Josephus. I'm sorry, it's in Josephus as well. The second witness to this, Tharbis. Alternatively, Adoniah. Remember, we see here Adoniah. This is the Cushite woman, queen here. Adoniah, according to Josephus, was a Cushite princess of the kingdom of Cush who married Moses prior to his marriage to Zipporah, as told in the book of Exodus. So you have a second witness here of this story being true that's in the book of Jasher. We're going to go down to 74. We're going to skip. This is the reign of different kings. We're going to go to 75, and then we're going to finish up the last part of chapter 2. So Jasher 75, this is another important one. We're going to find here, this is the story of 30,000 Ephraimites who take it upon themselves to try to leave Egypt on their own accord. And the reason I say that's important is because we're going to see what happens to them. And I believe that in a spiritual way, people are trying to leave Egypt before it's time. How do I want to explain that? There's been a movement within this movement that I just haven't been able to grasp or get alongside. People are trying to escape Babylon or escape Egypt by getting rid of their driver's licenses and registration, not registering their cars and not having insurance, and kind of sort of being lawless. And they feel like that's their leaving Egypt. But to me, it just seems to promote being lawless in the sight of men, because it's like, how can we ever be a witness to people if we can't even keep these simple laws like have a driver's license, or register your car, Anyways, let's just read this. At that time, in the 180th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt, there went forth from Egypt valiant men, 30,000 on foot from the children of Israel, who were all of the tribe of Joseph, of the children of Ephraim, the son of Joseph. For they said the period was completed which Yahweh had appointed to the children of Israel in the times of old, which he had spoken to Abraham. And these men girded themselves, and they put each man his sword at his side, and every man his armor upon him. And they trusted to their strength, and they went out together from Egypt with a mighty hand. But they brought no provision for the road, only silver and gold. Not even bread for that day did they bring in their hands, for they thought of getting their provisions for pay from the Philistines, and if not, they would take it by force. And these men were very mighty and valiant men. One man could pursue 1,000, and two could rout 10,000. So they trusted to their strength, and they went together as they were. And they directed their course toward the land of Gath, and they went down and found the shepherds of Gath feeding cattle of the children of Gath. And they said to the shepherds, "Give us some of the sheep for pay, that we may eat, for we are hungry, for we have eaten no bread this day." Excuse me. And the shepherd said, "Are they our sheep or cattle that we should give them to you even for pay?" So the children of Ephraim approached to take them by force. The shepherds of Gath shouted over them that their cry was heard at a distance. So all the children of Gath went out to them. And when the children of Gath saw the evil doings of the children of Ephraim, they returned and assembled the men of Gath, and they put on each man his armor, and came forth to the children of Ephraim for battle. And they engaged with them in the valley of Gath, and the battle was severe, and they smote from each other a great many on that day. And on the second day, the children of Gath sent to all the cities of the Philistines that they should come to their help, saying, "Come up unto us and help us, that we may smite the children of Ephraim, who have come forth from Egypt to take our cattle, and to fight against us without cause." Now the souls of the children of Ephraim were exhausted with hunger and thirst, for they had eaten no bread for 3 days. And 40,000 men went forth from the cities of the Philistines to the assistance of the men of Gath. And these men were engaged in battle with the children of Ephraim, and Yahweh delivered the children of Ephraim into the hands of the Philistines. And they smote all the children of Ephraim who had gone forth from Egypt. None were remaining but 10 men who had run away from this engagement. For this evil was from Yahweh against the children of Ephraim. For this why? Here's why. For they transgressed the word of Yahweh in going forth from Egypt before the period had arrived which Yahweh in the days of old had appointed to Israel. So it's like, the point I'm trying to make is Yah is going to come take us out of this when it's his timing. We can't like flee and try to go flee somewhere and leave and try to escape this to come. And of the Philistines there also fell a great many, about 20,000 men, and their brethren carried them and buried them in their cities. And the slain of the children of Ephraim remained forsaken in the valley of Gath for many days and years, and were not brought to burial. And the valley was filled with men's bones. Some of you that know your Torah pretty well Probably your gears are turning. And the men who had escaped from the battle came to Egypt and told all the children of Israel all that had befallen them. And their father Ephraim mourned over them many days, and his brethren came to console him. And he came unto his wife, and she bare a son, and he called his name Beriah, for she was unfortunate in his house. So right here, all the slain of the children of Ephraim remained forsaken in the valley of Gath for many years. So this is actually why when the children of Israel were leaving Egypt, they didn't go the short route through the land of the Philistines, because they would have seen all these dead bones. Let's actually confirm that. First of all, let's confirm the children of Ephraim's blunder here. Psalm 78:8. And might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with Elohim. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of Elohim, and refused to walk in his Torah, and forgot his works and his wonders that he had shown them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as a heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. Let's go to the Targums, and we're going to go to 13:17. This is when they were leaving Egypt. And it says here, and it was when Pharaoh had released the people that Yahweh did not conduct them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was the near one. For Yahweh said, unless the people be affrighted in seeing their brethren who were killed in war. So the number here is different. In Jasher it says 30,000. Here it says 200,000 men of strength of the tribe of Ephraim, who took shields and lances and weapons of war, and went down to Gath to carry off the flocks of the Philistines. And because they transgressed against the statute of the word of Yahweh, and went forth from Mitzrayim 3 years before the appointed end of their servitude, they were delivered into the hand of the Philistines, who slew them. So anyways, it just goes on to, this just proves the point that this story is true from the book of Jasher. So with that, let's go back to Exodus 2, and we're going to finish up Exodus 2. It says, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moshe stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, a Mitzrite delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah his daughter. And she bore to him a son, and called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Yasharel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up unto Elohim by reason of the bondage. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Yasharel, and Elohim had respect unto them. So with that, let's just read a little bit of Jasher 76 and then 77, and we're going to move on to Exodus 3. But before that, I need a sip of water. All right. Jasher 76, 1 through 34. And Moses, the son of Amram, was still king in the land of Cush in those days, and he prospered in his kingdom, and he conducted the government of the children of Cush in justice, in righteousness, and integrity. And all the children of Cush loved Moses all the days that he reigned over them, and all the inhabitants of the land of Cush were greatly afraid of him. And in the 40th year of the reign of Moses over Cush, Moses was sitting on the royal throne, whilst Adoniah the queen was before him, and all the nobles were sitting around him. And Adoniah the queen said before the king and the princes, what is this thing which you, the children of Cush, have done for this long time? Surely you know that for 40 years this man has reigned over Cush, and he has not approached me, nor has he served the Elohim of the children of Cush. Now therefore hear, O ye children of Cush, and let this man no more reign over you, as he is not of our flesh. Behold, Menacrus, my son, is grown up. Let him reign over you, for it is better for you to serve the son of your master than to serve a stranger, slave of the king of Egypt. And all the people and nobles of the children of Cush heard the words which Adoniah the queen had spoken in their ears. And all the people were preparing until the evening. And in the morning they rose up early and made Menacrus, son of Kikianus, king over them. And all the children of Cush were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moses, for Yahweh was with Moses. And the children of Cush remembered the oath which they swore unto Moses. Therefore they did no harm to him. But the children of Cush gave many presents to Moses and sent him from them with great honor. So Moses went forth from the land of Cush and went home and ceased to reign over Cush. And Moses was 66 years old when he went out of the land of Cush. For the thing was from Yahweh, for the period had arrived which he had appointed in the days of old to bring forth Israel from the affliction of the children of Ham. So Moses went to Midian, for he was afraid to return to Egypt on account of Pharaoh. And he went and sat at a well of water in Midian. And the 7 daughters of Reuel the Midianite went out to feed their father's flock. And they came to the well and drew water to water their father's flock. So the shepherds of Midian came and drove them away, and Moses rose up and helped them and watered the flock. And they came home to their father Reuel and told him what Moses did for them. And they said, An Egyptian man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherd. He drew up water for us and watered the flock. And Reuel said to his daughters, And where is he? And wherefore have you left the man? And Reuel sent for him and fetched him and brought him home, and he ate bread with him. And Moses related to Reuel that he had fled from Egypt, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him, and had sent him away in peace with honor and presents. And when Reuel had heard the words of Moses, Reuel said within himself, I will put this man into prison house, whereby I shall conciliate the children of Cush, for he has fled from them. Like this is to conciliate is to like to gain favor in the eyes of. And they took and put him into the prison house, and Moses was in the prison 10 years. And whilst Moses was in the prison house, Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, took pity over him, and supported him with bread and water all the time. And all the children of Israel were yet in the land of Egypt, serving the Egyptians in all manner of hard work. And the hand of the Egypt continued in severity over the children of Israel in those days. At that time, Yahweh smote Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Israel was this plague at that time from Yahweh upon Pharaoh, king of Egypt. For Yahweh had hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Israel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Israel. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before Yahweh, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. And when Yahweh had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. Now listen to this. Listen to how they cure him. I think they're still doing this disgusting stuff today. And his wise men and sorcerers said unto him that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them, and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Israel to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force, and they brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day. And the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. Thus did they do all the days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh slew was 375. But Yahweh hearkened not to the physicians of the king of Egypt, and the plague went on increasing mightily. And Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with the plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Israel. We'll stop there. So, adrenochrome, probably all the nasty other things they do behind closed doors is probably still going on today. We're going to read chapter 77, and then we're going to move on to chapter 3. All right. Adikam was 20 years old when he reigned over Egypt. He reigned 4 years. So, by the way, the other Pharaoh died. He reigned 94 years, and then his son rose up. So this is the next Pharaoh. Adikam was 20 years old when he reigned over Egypt. He reigned 4 years. In the 206th year of Israel's going down to Egypt did Adikam reign over Egypt, but he continued not so long in his reign over Egypt as his father had continued their reigns. For Melol, his father reigned 94 years in Egypt, but he was 10 years sick and died, for he had been wicked before Yahweh. And all the Egyptians called the name of Adikam Pharaoh, like the name of his fathers, as was their custom to do in Egypt. And all the wise men of Pharaoh called the name of Adikam Ahuz, for short is called Ahuz in the Egyptian language. And Adikam was exceedingly ugly, and he was a cubit and a span, probably anywhere from about, depending on if it was a royal cubit or a regular cubit, but either like 4 foot, like 4'11" to like 5'2". And he had a great beard which he reached the soles of his feet. And Pharaoh sat upon his father's throne to reign over Egypt, and he conducted the government of Egypt in his wisdom. And whilst he reigned, he exceeded his father and all the preceding kings in wickedness. And he increased his yoke over the children of Israel. And he went with his servants to Goshen to the children of Israel. And he strengthened the labor over them. And he said unto them, Complete your work, each day's task, and let not your hand slacken from our work from this day forward, as you did in the days of my father. And he placed officers over them from amongst the children of Israel. And over these officers he placed taskmasters from amongst the servants. And he placed over them a measure of bricks for them to do according to that number day by day. And he turned back and went to Egypt. At that time the taskmasters of Pharaoh ordered the officers of the children of Israel according to the command of Pharaoh, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, do your work each day and finish your task and observe the daily measure of bricks. Diminish not anything. And it shall come to pass that if you are deficient in your daily bricks, I will put your young children in their stead. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so in those days as Pharaoh had ordered them. And whenever any deficiency was found in the children of Israel's measure of their daily bricks, the taskmasters of Pharaoh would go to the wives of the children of Israel and take infants of the children of Israel to the number of bricks deficient, and they would take them by force from their mothers' laps and put them in the building instead of the bricks, whilst their fathers and mothers were crying over them and weeping when they heard the weeping voices of their infants in the wall of the building. And the taskmasters prevailed over Israel, that the Israelites should place their children in the building, so that a man placed his son in the wall and put mortar over him, whilst his eyes wept over him, and his tears ran down upon his child. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so to the babes of Israel for many days, and no one pitied or had compassion over the babes of the children of Israel. And the number of all the children killed in the building was 270, some whom they had built upon instead of the bricks, which had been left deficient by their fathers, and some whom they had drawn out dead from the building. And the labor imposed upon the children of Israel in the days of Adikam exceeded in hardship that which they had performed in the days of his father. And the children of Israel sighed every day on account of their heavy work, for they had said to themselves, Behold, when Pharaoh shall die, his son will rise up and lighten our work. But they increased that latter work more than the former, and the children of Israel sighed at this, and their cry ascended to Elohim on account of their labor. And Elohim heard the voice of the children of Israel and their cry in those days, and Elohim remembered to them his covenant which he had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Elohim saw the burden of the children of Israel and their heavy work in those days, and he determined to deliver them. And Moses, the son of Amram, was still confined in the dungeon in those days, and in the house of Reuel the Midianite, and Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, did support him with food secretly day by day. And Moses was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, which was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Egypt, in the place of his father, Zipporah said to her father Reuel, No person inquires or seeks after the Hebrew man, whom you did bind up in prison now 10 years. Now therefore, if it seem good in your sight, let us send and see whether he is living or dead. But her father knew not that she had supported him. And Reuel her father answered and said to her, Has ever such a thing happened, that a man should be shut up in prison without food for 10 years, that he should live? And Zipporah answered her father, saying, Surely you have heard that the Elohim of the Hebrews is great and awful, and does wonders for them at all times. He it was who delivered Abraham from Ur of the Chaldeans, and Isaac from the sword of his father, and Jacob from the angel of Yahweh who wrestled with him at the ford of Yabok. Also with this man has he done many things. He delivered him from the river in Egypt, and from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also can he deliver him from a famine and make him live. And the thing seemed good in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moses. And he saw, and behold, the man Moses was living in the dungeon, standing upon his feet, praising and praying to Yahweh, Elohim of his ancestors. And Reuel commanded Moses to be brought out of the dungeon, so they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. And afterward Moses went into the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and there he prayed to Yahweh's Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that while he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahweh Sebaot was engraved on it, written and developed upon the stick. And he read it, and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. And this is the stick with which all the works of our Elohim were performed, after he had created heaven and earth, and all the host of them, seas, rivers, and all their fishes. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand, and went and tilled the ground from which he was taken. And the stick came down to Noah, and was given to Shem and his descendants until it came into the hands of Abraham the Hebrew. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Isaac, he also gave him the stick. And when Jacob had fled to Padan Aram, he took it in his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Also when he went down to Egypt, he took it in his hands and gave it to Joseph, one portion above his brethren, for Jacob had taken it by force from his brother Esau. And after the death of Joseph, the nobles of Egypt came into the house of Joseph, and the stick came into the hand of Reuel the Midianite, And when he went out of Egypt, he took it in his hand and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of the Kenites tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Zipporah his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. So that stick remained planted in the garden of Reuel until he who came, who had a right to it, and took it. And when Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moses, he wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. So I also have I would say that I think Hollywood might get their ideas from the book of Jasher in many cases. This is just one of them. Like, the story, The Sword and the Stone, I think actually comes from this true story. So let's go back now to Exodus 3. We're going to do the word audio, and we will continue on. Exodus 3.
Shemot, Exodus, chapter 3. Now Moshe kept the flock of Yitro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire, out of the midst of a thorn bush. And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush burned with fire, and the thorn bush was not consumed. And Moshe said,
I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the thorn bush is not burnt.
And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called unto him out of the midst of the thorn bush, and said,
Moshe, Moshe.
And he said,
Here am I.
And he said,
Draw not nigh hither. Put off your shoes from off your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground.
Moreover he said,
I am the Elohai of your father, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzhak, and the Elohai of Yaakov.
And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahweh said,
I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanim, and the Hittim, and the Amorim, and the Perizim, and the Hivim, and the Yevusim. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Yasharel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Mitzrayim oppress them. Come now therefore, I will send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Yasharel, out of Mitzrayim.
And Moshe said unto Elohim,
Who am I that I should go into Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Yasharel out of Mitzrayim?
And he said,
Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a sign unto you that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Mitzrayim, ye shall serve Elohim upon this mountain.
And Moshe said unto Elohim,
Behold, when I come unto the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, The Elohai of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say unto me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them?
And Elohim said unto El Moshe,
Ahaya Asher Ahaya, I am that I am.
And he said,
Thus shall you say unto the children of Yasharel, Ahaya I am has sent me unto you.
And Elohim said moreover unto El Moshe,
Thus shall you say unto the children of Yasharel, Yahuwah Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzhak, and the Elohai of Yaakov, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my mention unto all generations. Go and gather the elders of Yasharel together, and say unto them, Yahuwah Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and the Elohai of Yaakov, appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim, unto the land of the Canaanim, and the Hittim, and the Amorim, and the Perizim, and the Hivim, and the Yevusim, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, and they shall hearken to your voice. And you shall come, you and the elders of Yasharel, unto the king of Mitzrayim, and ye shall say unto him, Yahuwah Elohai of the Ephraim has met us. And now let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahuwah Eloheinu. And I am sure that the king of Mitzrayim will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand, and smite Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go, and I will give this people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver, and jewels of gold, and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons, and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Mitzrayim.
Okay, praise. Yeah, let's talk about chapter 3 a little bit. A couple things I would like to point out is, number one, who was in the burning bush is I think an excellent question to start off with. Let's go to, it says the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire, right? And then it says, when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called out unto him out of the midst of the thorn bush. So who is in the thorn bush? The angel of Yahweh. Who's the angel of Yahweh? Just a couple other couple passages here. This is 2nd Ezra again. It says, on the 3rd day, while I was sitting under an oak, behold, a voice came out of a bush opposite me and said, Ezra, Ezra. And I said, here, my master, and I rose to my feet. Then he said to me, I revealed myself in a bush and spoke to Moses when my people were in bondage in Egypt. So again, this still doesn't answer the question, who is this? Let's go to Joshua 5. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, no, but as captain of the host of Yahweh am I now come? And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said to him, what says my master unto his servant? And the captain of Yahweh's host said unto Joshua, loose your shoe from off your foot, for the place where you stand is holy. And Joshua did so. So the same scenario that happened here for this captain of the host of Yahweh. And so the same thing happened in Joshua, same thing happened with Moses, that you take off your shoes because it's holy ground here. So we're probably dealing with the same person, same entity. And I don't think this is just an angel. We're not commanded to worship or bow down to angels. That's just not it at all. We bow down to our King. And, we have to ask ourselves, who is the captain of the host of Yahweh's army? We'll answer that in a second. John 1:18 says, no man has seen Elohim at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. So I've made this point before. Messiah says several times, no one's ever seen the Father. Nobody. Not Moses, nobody. And so either Messiah is a liar or no one has seen the Father. So I believe Messiah, and no one has seen the Father. He goes on to say that also in John 6, I believe. Exodus 23:20. 23:20-23. Behold, I sent an angel or messenger before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place where I have prepared. So there was an entity that brought them into this land. Angel, I believe it's the same angel of the Lord. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. I come in my Father's name. But if you shall indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary unto your adversaries. For my angel shall go before you and bring you into the land. Let's go to... Okay, thank you, baby. No, I'm recording right now. I love you so much. You want to say hi to everybody? Come here, say hi, everybody. I don't think you guys have ever met Marielle. You say hi. Woo. Okay, I love you. All right, let Daddy finish. Put that on the kitchen counter. Okay. Can you close the door? Okay. I love my children. Sorry for that. She found an egg. Our chickens are just laying eggs like in the woods, and they have to. It's like a hunt. They have to go hunt them down every time. Malachi 3:1. Behold, I will send my messenger. That same word there is same word used for angel. Malachim. Behold, I will send my malach, my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And Yahweh whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, the angel of the covenant whom you delight in. Behold, he shall come, says Yahweh Sabaoth. So Messiah is called the messenger or the angel of the covenant. I believe he's also called the angel of Yah. Revelation 10:1-3, I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. And when he had cried, the seven thunders uttered their voices. Yes, baby.
I just need water.
Huh? Some water?
I just need water.
You can have my sparkly water. But after this, don't. If you don't interrupt Daddy in here, Daddy's doing his study. I love you. I love you. Now close the door for me, please. Sorry. So this can be no one other than Messiah here. Jude 5, I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that the Master, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. And when we look at some of the earlier manuscripts here, Jude actually wrote that right here. Instead of the Lord, it was actually Isus Yahusha. So Jude, his own brother, knew that it was Messiah that was literally the one that was in Egypt and saved them. I believe Messiah, the point I'm getting to is I believe Messiah is the angel of Yahweh who was in the burning bush speaking for and as Elohim, not as just some angel. Not that an angel is like a nothing being. I'm not saying that, but there obviously has to be a difference between angels and our Messiah. And so I believe our Messiah was the one in the burning bush. I believe our Messiah was the pillar of fire and the cloud, and the one that literally led them out of Egypt. Let's go to the Targum's version real quickly. We're going to go to chapter 3, verse 14. Says right here, and the word of Yahweh said to Moses, he who spake to the world be as it was, and he will speak to be. And he said, thus shall you speak to the sons of Yasharel, Ahayah has sent me unto you. So it just literally says the word of Yahweh is the one that spoke out of the fire, which of course, and we also, I don't think I read it, but in Revelation 19, Messiah is identified as the captain of the host of Yahweh's army. So just wanted to share that with you. If you believe something different, I praise Yah. Let's go to Exodus 3:6, where it says, moreover, he said, I am the Elohai of your father, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, the Elohai of Yaakov, which I do believe Messiah is. And that's why I believe he had to come and die, because his bride, right, was whored away. He had to die in order to take her back. Messiah didn't have to die so he can take his father's wife back. That would be super inappropriate. But he says here that he is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Later on in Matthew 22, Messiah quotes this, but it says, but as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken unto you by your Elohim, saying, he's quoting Exodus 3:6, I am the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob. Elohim is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. And the reason this is interesting is because he's declaring he's the Elohim of the living, which Pharaoh, the actual word Pharaoh, means the king of the dead, right? King over the dead or king of the dead, something like that. And when we look at the book of Jasher, it actually gives you the story of how Pharaoh got his name. I'm not going to read it, but it's from a man named Richion, which went from rags to riches and became Pharaoh, and he became Pharaoh by exercising a tax on the dead. When someone would die, he taxed them, and he collected all this money and became rich and ended up just taking over. And so literally, he's the Lord of over the dead is basically Pharaoh. So in this whole Exodus story, you have the Elohim of the living versus the Elohim of the dead, which is what's going to happen again in the end times, which Messiah versus the beast and his army, and of course the devil. So you have life versus death. Let's go to Exodus 3:14. So further, it says, Moses is like, well, they're going to ask, what's his name? And so this causes some confusion because some people just read verse 14, and his answer here is Ahaya, Asher Ahaya, which means I am that I am. And so people are like, well, that's his name. Ahaya, Asher Ahaya. And what's interesting is if you just keep reading, and he says, moreover, so he kept speaking unto Moses, this is what you shall say to the children of Israel, Yahuwah Elohai of your fathers. This is my name and my mention to all generations. So this is a title, right? So he first answers, I am that I am. But then he goes on, you know what? Tell him, my name is Yahuwah Elohai. Go and gather the elders of Yasharel together and say to them, Yahuwah of your fathers appeared to me, not Ahaya. So I'm not saying his name, he can't be called Ahaya, but there's a whole movement of saying, nope, his name is Ahaya, Asher Ahaya. But all you have to do is just read 2 more verses and say, well, that's actually not his name. But also, Messiah is the one here speaking, or the angel of the Lord, the angel of Yahweh is speaking here, saying, he's not, when angels speak on behalf of Yah, you know it. Right? Thus says, this is what Yahweh says. But he's speaking, Ahaya, Asher Ahaya, I am that I am. And Messiah, he quotes this, of course. He quotes himself, John 8:57 through 59. Then said the Jews unto him, you are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Yahushua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. And they knew exactly what he meant because they went right to picking up stones to cast him, stones to cast at him, to kill him. So I believe that Messiah is the I am. I believe he is the angel of Yahweh, the representation, the perfect image, the mouthpiece of Yahweh that has been down here and representing Yahweh and his ways and his kingdom, and was the one that's been interacting with man ever since the beginning. That's how I understand it. And then, talking about his name, we just need to remind ourselves here of how important his name are. And this is just a few passages of many. Jeremiah 23:27 says, this is talking about evil people, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Exodus 9:16, and in very deed for this cause have I raised you up, Pharaoh, for to show in you my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. We're supposed to declare his name. Psalm 91:14, because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. And it's not just the pronunciation. Let me just mention that his name is also his character, his representation, his commandments, his Torah. John 17:6, Messiah says, I have manifested your name unto the men which you gave me out of the world. Thine they were, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Malachi 3:16 through 18, this is a great promise. Then they that feared Yahweh spoke often one to another, and Yahweh hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Yahweh and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, says Yahweh Sabaoth, in the day that when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spares his own son that serves him. Then shall you return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serves Elohim and him that serves him not. Psalm 96, 1 through 3, O sing unto Yahweh a new song. Sing unto Yahweh all the earth. Sing unto Yahweh. Bless his name. Hallelujah. Thank you, Yahweh. Show forth his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the nations, his wonders among all the people. Psalm 100, make a joyful noise unto Yahweh, all ye lands. Serve Yahweh with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that Yahweh, he is Elohim. It is he that has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. For Yahweh is good and his mercy is everlasting and his truth endures to all generations. Last one, Proverbs 30 verse 4. Who has ascended up to heaven or descended? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has bound the waters as in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name and what is his son's name, if you can tell? Hallelujah. Hallelujah to Yahweh and his son Yahusha. Let's go to chapter 4, and we'll go to the word audio.
Shemot, Exodus, chapter 4. And Moshe answered and said,
But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahweh has not appeared unto you.
And Yahweh said unto him,
What is that in your hand?
and he said,
A rod?
and he said,
Cast it on the ground.
And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moshe fled from before it. And Yahweh said unto Moshe,
Put forth your hand, and take it by the tail,
and he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand.
that they may believe that Yahuwah Elohai of their fathers, the Elohai of Avraham, the Elohai of Yitzhak, and the Elohai of Yaakov, has appeared unto you.
And Yahweh said furthermore unto him,
Put now your hand into your bosom.
and he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said,
Put your hand into your bosom again.
and he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe you, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto your voice, that you shall take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land.
And Moshe said unto Yahweh,
Oh my Adonai, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since you have spoken unto your servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue.
And Yahweh said unto him,
Who has made man's mouth, or who makes the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, Yahuwah? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say.
and he said,
O my Adonai, send, I pray you, by the hand of whom you will send.
and the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Moshe, and he said,
Is not Aharon the Levi your brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he comes forth to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak unto him, and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be your spokesman unto the people, and he shall be, even he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of Elohim. And you shall take this rod in your hand, wherewith you shall do signs.
And Moshe went and returned to Yitro his father-in-law, and said unto him,
Let me go, I pray you, and return unto my brethren which are in Mitzrayim, and see whether they be yet alive.
And Yitro said unto Moshe,
Go in peace.
and Yahweh said unto Moshe in Midian,
Go, return into Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead which sought your life.
And Moshe took his woman and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said unto Moshe,
When you go to return into Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh which I have put into your hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And you shall say unto Pharaoh, Thus says Yahuwah, Yasharel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn.
And it came to pass by the way in the inn that Yahweh met him, and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, and cut off the foreskin of her son, and cast it at his feet, and said,
Surely a bloody man are you to me.
So he let him go. Then she said,
A bloody man you are, because of the circumcision.
and Yahweh said to Aharon,
Go into the wilderness to meet Moshe.
and he went, and met him in the mount of Elohim, and kissed him. And Moshe told Aharon all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe and Aharon went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Yasharel. And Aharon spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken unto Moshe, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Yasharel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped.
Can you imagine how refreshing those words must have been from Moses to the elders? That's like, hey, Yahweh's appeared. He's here to deliver us. So just a couple things on chapter 4. It says, Moshe said unto Eliyahu, O my Adonai, I'm not eloquent, neither heretofore, no, since you have spoken unto your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. So I do think that we were able to surface earlier through the book of Jasher why that was. Perhaps he just, just formed a stutter through that. It said he was heavy in mouth in Jasher. And then we have this interesting passage in 24 through 26 with Zipporah circumcising Gershom. First of all, the way the canon is written, it says it makes her kind of seem like a really rash and angry and woman. Surely a bloody man you are to me, and a bloody man are you because of the circumcision. Sounds like she's insolent, but that's really, I don't think was the case. I'd like to. Let's go to Jasher 78. We're going to go 7 through 16. It says, in those days Moses, the son of Amram, in Midian took Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, the Midianite, for a wife. And Zipporah walked in the ways of the daughters of Jacob. She was nothing short of the righteousness of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. And Zipporah conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I was a stranger in a foreign land. But he circumcised not his foreskin at the command of Reuel, his father-in-law. And she conceived again and bare a son, but circumcised his foreskin, and called his name Eliezer. For Moses said, because the Elohim of my fathers was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, greatly increased the labor of the children of Israel in those days, and continued to make his yoke heavier upon the children of Israel. And he ordered a proclamation to be made in Egypt, saying, give no more straw to the people to make bricks with it. Let them go and gather themselves straw as they can find it. Also the tale of bricks which they shall make, let them give each day, and diminish nothing from them, for they are idle in their work. And the children of Israel heard this, and they mourned and sighed, and they cried unto Yahweh on account of the bitterness of their souls. And Yahweh heard the cries of the children of Israel, and saw the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. And Yahweh was jealous of his people and his inheritance, and heard their voice, and he resolved to take them out of the affliction of Egypt, to give them the land of Canaan for a possession. Let's go to 79, 1 through 12. And in those days Moses was feeding the flock of Reuel, the Midianite, his father-in-law, beyond the wilderness of Sin, and the stick with which he took from his father-in-law was in his hand. And it came to pass one day that a kid of the goats strayed from the flock, and Moses pursued it, and came to the mountain of Elohim to Horeb. And when he came to Horeb, Yahweh appeared there unto him in the bush, and he found the bush burning with fire, but the fire had no power over the bush to consume it. And Moses was greatly astonished at this sight, wherefore the bush was not consumed, and he approached to see this mighty thing. And Yahweh called unto Moshe out of the fire, and commanded him to go down to Egypt, to Pharaoh king of Egypt, to send the children of Israel from his service. And Yahweh said to Moses, go, return to Egypt, for all those men who sought your life are dead, and ye shall speak unto Pharaoh to send forth the children of Israel from his land. And Yahweh showed him to do signs and wonders in Egypt before the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his subjects, in order that they might believe that Yahweh had sent him. And Moses hearkened to all that Yahweh had commanded him, and he returned to his father-in-law and told him the thing, and Reuel said to him, go in peace. And Moses rose up to go to Egypt, and he took his wife and sons with him, and he was at an inn in the road, and an angel of Elohim came down and sought an occasion against him. So in the canon it says Yahweh. It just didn't make sense, because it's like Yahweh was like, I'm going to pick you, I'm raising you to go deliver my children of Israel out of Egypt. And then like a couple of verses later, he's like, hey, I want to kill you. And you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? He knew, Yahweh would have known that his child was already uncircumcised, and would have been like, hey, I'm going to do all these things, but before you go, you got to get right with me. You got to circumcise your child. So it says here, an angel of Elohim came down and sought an occasion against him. And he wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son, because he had not circumcised him, and had transgressed the covenant which Yahweh had made with Abraham. For Moses had hearkened to the words of his father-in-law, which he had spoken to him, not to circumcise his firstborn son. Therefore he circumcised him not. And Zipporah saw the angel of Yahweh seeking an occasion against Moses, and she knew that this thing was owing to his not having circumcised her son Gershom. And Zipporah hastened and took of the sharp rock stones that were there, and she circumcised her son, and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the angel of Yahweh. And we'll pause there. First of all, I want to go back here. A bloody man are you to me, and a bloody man are you because of the circumcision. I will tell you, we just circumcised our... It's interesting this happening on this Torah portion. We just circumcised our son... How many days ago? couple days ago. Anyways, and I'll tell you, it was the first time I ever saw a circumcision. I mean, I was circumcised when I was a child, and anyways, so I'll tell you, it was gruesome. It was a lot. And so I can see, like, seeing the blood, and wives, the wives aren't too, the mothers aren't always too happy about their children bleeding, and neither are the fathers. But my wife was really broken at this. But of course, we were so happy to keep a commandment of Yah. And a lot of people are saying circumcision is done today. I totally disagree. I mean, Ezekiel 44 or something says, no one that is uncircumcised of heart or the flesh shall enter into his tabernacle. The circumcision of the flesh is not some new spiritual understanding. Deuteronomy 10, he told the children of Israel to circumcise the foreskins of their hearts, right? But anyways, my point is we felt so blessed to be able to circumcise our son. And it was intense, and it was a blessing. It was an absolute blessing, even though it's just a lot. But lastly, on Zipporah, and we'll move to chapter 5, and actually we'll finish up, is I want to go to the Targums, because I don't think Zipporah spoke like that to Moses. It says, and Moses took his wife and his sons and made them ride on the ass and returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod which he had brought away from the chamber of his father-in-law. So here's a second witness to the stick story. And it was from the sapphire throne of glory. And it was weight 40 seen. And upon it was engraven and set forth a great and glorious name by which the signs should be wrought before Yahweh by his hand. So confirming witness for what we read. It's not just some fantasy story. Exodus 24 through 26 in the Targum says, but it was on the way in the place of lodging that a messenger of Yahweh met him and sought to kill him, because Gershom his son had not been circumcised, inasmuch as Jethro his father-in-law had not permitted him to circumcise him, but Eleazar had been circumcised by an agreement between them two. And Zipporah took a stone, which, by the way, seeing how it was done with a sharp razor instrument is one thing, and then versus a stone, whew. And Zipporah took a stone and circumcised the foreskin of Gershom her son, and brought the severed part to the feet of the messenger, the destroyer, and said, the husband sought to circumcise, but the father-in-law obstructed him. Now let this blood of the circumcision atone for my husband. And the destroying messenger desisted from him, so that Zipporah gave thanks and said, how lovely is the blood of this circumcision that has delivered my husband from the messenger of destruction. So which is true, I don't know, but I at least just wanted to share that other aspect and other possibility that Zipporah was not just some mouthy woman. All right, chapter 5, and actually we'll read all of 5 in the word audio and just verse 1 of chapter 6. That's where the Torah portion ends. I've got just a few notes, and we'll be finished up here. So let's get the word audio going. And yeah.
Shemot, Exodus, chapter 5. And afterward, Moshe and Aharon went in and told Pharaoh,
Thus says Yahweh Elohai of Yashrael, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness.
And Pharaoh said,
Who is Yahuwah that I should obey his voice to let Yasharel go? I know not Yahuwah, neither will I let Yasharel go.
And they said,
The Elohai of the Ivrim has met with us. Let us go, we pray you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto Yahweh Eloheinu, lest he fall upon us with pestilence, or with a sword.
And the king of Mitzrayim said unto them,
Wherefore do ye, Moshe and Aaron, let the people from their works get you unto your burdens.
And Pharaoh said,
Behold, the people of the land now are many, and ye make them rest from their burdens.
And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying,
Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the tale of the bricks which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them, ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim. Let their more work be laid upon the men, that they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words.
And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying,
Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, get you straw where you can find it. Yet not aught of your work shall be diminished.
So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying,
Fulfill your works, your daily tasks, as when there was straw.
And the officers of the children of Yasharel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten, and demanded,
Wherefore have ye not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today as heretofore?
Then the officers of the children of Yasharel came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying,
Wherefore do you thus with your servants? There is no straw given unto your servants, and they say to us, Make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is in your own people.
But he said,
Ye are idle, ye are idle. Therefore ye say, Let us go and do sacrifice to Yahweh. Go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you. Yet shall ye deliver the tale of bricks.
And the officers of the children of Yasharel did see that they were in an evil case. After it was said,
Ye shall not diminish out of your bricks from your daily task.
and they met Moshe and Aharon, who stood in the way, as they came forth from Pharaoh. And they said unto them,
Yahuwah, look upon you and judge, because ye have made our savor to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us.
And Moshe returned unto Eliyahu and said,
Adonai, wherefore have you so evil entreated this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to the people. Neither have you delivered your people at all.
We're going to let it run. Okay, I thought I had verse 1 there of 6, so I can just read it real quick. Then Yahweh said unto Moshe, Now shall you see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. So let's talk about 5, and we'll finish up this week's Torah portion. I know a long one. Hopefully, if you stayed here till the end, praise, yeah, it's a lot. I want to go back to verses 4 through 5 and just remind you, just to show you again, that it says, And the king of Mitzrayim said to them, Wherefore do you, Moshe and Aaron, let your people from their works, right? And then he says, Behold, the people rest. The people are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. Remember when Moses instituted the Sabbath day rest? And it seemed as though, of course, they revoked that and then added more on there. At the end of this, I think there's something that we can really glean for our mind and our ruach. So we see, of course, all this stuff happens. I mean, put yourself in Moses' shoes for a minute. You know, Yah talks to him out of the burning bush. Hey, baby, I'm almost done. Oh, it's beautiful. Where'd you find that?
Right back there.
Huh?
It was back there.
She found a beautiful geode. Beautiful. Hey, baby, I'm almost done, okay?
But Daddy, somebody stole my balloon. They're not giving it back to me.
Okay, hang on a second. Give me here. Hang on. Excuse me, y'all. Just 1 second. Okay. So, I'm sorry, just put yourself in Moses' shoes for a second. And, Yah, he was spoken to by an angel, the burning bush, all the things that's going on in his life, and being pulled out of the prison house of Reuel, the stick, and all these things. And then he's like, go and get my people to Egypt. And he goes to Egypt. And then it's just like he gets denied. And, the Sabbath gets taken away. The burdens increase. And so what would you think in your mind? You'd be like, did I really see Yah? He's probably questioning himself. Like, did I really see Yah? He's like, he's talking to God. He's talking to Yah. He's like, for since I came to Pharaoh speaking your name, he has done evil to his people. Neither have you delivered your people at all. But so there could have been some doubt in his mind, right? But he's like, Moses kept pushing on. And this reminds me of Isaiah 26. This could be something that we could cry out for our own hearts. Isaiah 26:17, like a pregnant woman who writhes and cries out in her pangs when she is near to giving birth, so were we because of you, O Yahweh. We were pregnant, we writhed, but we have given birth to wind. We have accomplished no deliverance in the earth, and the inhabitants of the world have not fallen. Your dead shall live, their bodies shall rise. You who dwell in the dust, awake and sing for joy. For your dew is a dew of light, and the earth will give birth to the dead. Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the fury has passed by. So here these people, are going through so much trial. And it says, we have accomplished no deliverance in the earth. The inhabitants of the world have not fallen. So it's like, we're here to plead your cause. We're here to stand for the kingdom of Elohim. But there's no deliverance in the earth. The world's not fallen. We're just here, and we're getting beaten up left and right. The enemy's picking us off, killing. Let's go to the book of the Nazarene. I think there's some really good wise words here, and I think we're going to just finish up this Torah portion. Nazarene 3, verse 40. It says, one day at eveningtide, Yahusha said, because you are wearied and your task seems endless, do not despair. So even though Moses' task seemed endless or pointless, or even counterproductive, do not despair. What you do may be likened to a man down by the seashore whose master has set him the task of carrying water from the sea to fill a hole in the sand. The sea flows no less, neither does the land become flooded. When the master comes, and the man says to him, this is a fruitless task to which I can see no end. And the master replies, it is one which grows easier with time, and each day you are paid. Some good words there. Let's go to 44 through 46. It says, the disciple said, Master, many people hear our words, but how many take them to heart and benefit? We are trying to bail out the sea with a shell. It seems like insurmountable. And what about us right now when we're here to preach the gospel and to share with the nations the goodness of Messiah and walking in the commandments? It's like we're nothing. We're a drop in the bucket. Yeshua said, then you are learning patience and persistence in a good school. If a cloak is placed around a shivering man, his body becomes warm and is comforted. But if it is placed around a boulder, there is neither effect nor response. Though I have told you the days fly as though carried on the wings of swallows, do not act as though the day's labor is all important and must be completed within the day. Doing this, you become less able to perform the task, for he who tries to reach out over the edge of his limitations falls into a pit and achieves nothing. So last thing, I keep saying last thing. Last thing we're going to read is Jasher 79, 21 through 31, and we will end this Torah portion. We'll pray, and we'll head out. So Jasher 79, 21. And when they came to the king's gate, this is Moses and Aaron coming to the king's gate. 2 young lions were confined there with iron instruments, and no person went out or came in from before them, unless those whom the king ordered to come, when the conjurers came and withdrew the lions by their incantations. And this brought them to the king. And Moses hastened and lifted up the stick upon the lions, and he loosed them. And Moses and Aaron came into the king's house. The lions also came with them in joy, and they followed them, and rejoiced as a dog rejoices over his master when he comes from the field. And when Pharaoh saw this thing, he was astonished at it, and he was greatly terrified at the report, for their appearance was like the appearance of the children of Elohim. And Pharaoh said to Moses, what do you require? And they answered him, saying, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has sent us to you to say, send forth my people, that they may serve me. And when Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them. And he said to them, go today, and come back to me tomorrow. And they did according to the word of the king. And when they had gone, Pharaoh sent for Balaam the magician, and to Jannes and Jambres, there they are, his sons, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king. And they all came and sat before the king. And the king told him all the words which Moses and his brother Aaron had spoken to him. And the magician said to the king, "But how came the men to you on account of the lions which were confined to the gate?" And the king said, "Because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them, and came to me, and the lions also rejoiced at them as a dog rejoices to meet his master." And Balaam the son of Beor the magician answered the king, saying, "These are none else than the magicians like ourselves. Now therefore send for them, and let them come, and we'll try them." And the king did so. So with that, brothers and sisters, our Torah portion has ended. I pray it was a blessing for you in some way. I know it's been for me over the years. It's one of my favorite Torah portions. So much information is packed in this one. Obviously, it's long, so a lot of information was packed. But I pray it was a blessing for you to learn more of the history of how the Israelites went from prosperity to slavery back to prosperity again. And I believe that we're in that middle point right now. We're just waiting for our master to come and redeem us like he did once before. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, Yahweh Most High, we come before you and we bless you. We pray to be counted worthy to escape the things that are coming to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Father, we know that we are to be tarrying, while Messiah is tarrying, to be occupied in your word and in righteousness and in truth, to teach it to our sons and daughters, Father. We just pray you'd be with us and help us to walk in the way, neither to go to the left or to the right of your righteous commandments. We thank you for the Sabbath. We thank you for your word, and we thank you for revealing these hidden words to us. In Yahushua's name, amen and hallelujah. We're going to play a song, and then I might introduce you to some more of my children. Let's go with, just like Aaron told the children of Israel, lay down your idols. Let's go with Left and Right Ministries, O Israel, an oldie but a goodie.
Is a wrestling in our soul that long to know our great Adon. As we wander in the wilderness, we lift our cry up to receive his rest. Who is our Elohim? Oh, his voice is calling. Let us come to Mount Zion to praise him alone. Oh Israel, lay down your idols, bow to Yahweh. Let us come to Mount Zion to praise him alone. Is a wrestling in our soul that long to know our great Adon. As we wander in the wilderness, we lift our cry up to receive his rest. Who is our Elohim? Oh, his voice is calling. Let us come to Mount Zion to praise him alone. Oh Israel, lay down your idols, bow to Yahweh. Let us come to Mount Zion to praise him alone. Praise him alone. We praise the El of Yaakov, who was and is to come. We praise the El of Yaakov, who gave his one and only Son to make us free and forgiven. Oh, we praise the El of Yaakov. We praise the El of Yaakov, who was and is to come. We praise the El of Yaakov, who gave his one and only Son to make us free and forgiven. Oh, we praise the El of Yaakov.
Say, oh, Yisrael. Sing it.
Hindi.
Oh, you don't want to? You're shy. You want to say Shabbat Shalom? Say Shabbat Shalom. Oh, okay.
Do you want to see her say Shabbat Shalom? I would say.
Okay, that's enough. No, yes. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is Madeline.
Shabbat Shalom.
This is my baby. Okay, all right, that's enough. I love you so much. Bye. Shabbat Shalom. Say Shabbat Shalom. Say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.